Aiden is an NPC blacksmith who acts on his own. One day, the moderator decides to delete some bugs in the game, and Aiden is among them. Not only him but also the little girl he adopted. For some reason, the protagonist, Aiden, comes back to life as an NPC but now with the help of a system. With this new power, he vows to become strong enough to destroy the moderator responsible for his sister's elimination. The story begins with a village being deleted. All the NPCs and monsters in that village had no way to avoid being erased, and no one knew the exact reason why. Aiden, the protagonist, tries to save his sister, but unfortunately, Alice was deleted. Her last words to him were to survive. She disappeared in front of his eyes, leaving only a bracelet behind. At this point, Aiden was also caught by the moderator and was being deleted. The moderator, dressed in a dark outfit with a mask, identifies Aiden as a low-level threat and orders his permanent elimination. Before losing consciousness, Aiden wonders why this had to happen to him. This game was created to make players feel powerful. They were seen as heroes when destroying monsters, and the people worshipped these players, thanking them for saving everyone from the monsters. But over time, the players became arrogant. They felt superior, and this was a disaster for NPCs and even low-level players. No one could stop the evil acts of these players, and worse, the moderators and administrators didn't care about the crimes. Anyone who went against the system was labeled a bug and eliminated by the moderator. Aiden, as an NPC, didn't care about the players or the game owners. He just wanted to survive and live a normal life. One cold day, he found a little girl with red hair and named her Alice. Over time, Aiden realized that neither he nor Alice were affected by the game's internal maintenance. When the maintenance started, everything, including players, NPCs, and monsters, stopped. But Aiden and Alice could still move and live normally. He didn't know why, but he took advantage of it. As Aiden grew up, he became a blacksmith. Unfortunately, he suffered at the hands of the players, but they avoided deleting him because he was just an NPC. In this game, players gained karma points when they eliminated others, and those with a lot of points were seen as unreliable. So, players avoided fighting to keep their reputations intact. Alice, saddened by the way Aiden was treated, tried to comfort him, but he pretended everything was fine to protect her. Alice was the most important person to Aiden. He literally lived for her. The two lived happily together for a few years, until the moderator decided to erase their village permanently. On that day, Aiden was also deleted, but as he was about to disappear, he swore to himself that he would destroy the moderator with his own hands. Just when it seemed like the end of an NPC's life, the moderator's deletion command was cancelled, and Aiden's character was restored. The protagonist woke up, bewildered, not understanding how he was alive. Suddenly, a system notification appeared, informing him that Aiden had been reborn and now had the powers of a moderator. The command skill had been unlocked. Several tabs appeared, showing available commands. Aiden looked at them in disbelief. A little later, in Banson Forest, several players gathered near Edeline Castle. Someone asked why so many people had gathered, and one player guessed it was for a game event. Another player thought it was a weapon enhancement event. At this moment, we see Aiden, the NPC, working on weapons. A player doubts it's an event because no notification appeared on his system tab, assuming it must be a secret event. At that point, Aiden turned an ordinary sword into a special one without using any materials. The player happily thanked him for the upgrade, celebrating that it looked magical. He said everyone should enjoy it since they didn't know when such an event would happen again. Many players lined up to upgrade their weapons. Suddenly, a rude player jumped to the front of the line, pushing others aside. He handed his sword to Aiden for improvement. Aiden recognized him as the same player who always bullied him. At that time, Aiden had done nothing to retaliate to protect Alice. The players demanded the rude player get out of line since he had jumped ahead of everyone. Someone commented that the player was known for buying items cheaply and selling them at exorbitant prices, and everyone knew he had a bad reputation. The rude player recognized Aiden as the NPC from the deleted village. His friend asked how he had gotten here. They also remembered the little girl who always accompanied Aiden. The protagonist gritted his teeth, hearing them talk about his life like he had no feelings. But then he had an idea. He started improving the sword. The rude player hoped to get a special sword, but his friend warned him not to take the risk. The protagonist, standing in the background with a gloomy face, overheard their conversation. Minutes later, several swords were thrown to the ground, broken. The system announced that the enhancement had failed, and the equipment was destroyed. The rude player began crying, clutching his useless swords. Aiden laughed, saying his hands had gotten slippery. Other players cheered at his defeat. The rude player grabbed Alice by the collar and demanded compensation for the ruined weapons. He tried to blame Aiden, but both of them were soon expelled by the players who wanted their weapons upgraded. Later that night, Aiden returned to his room, now full of money. The system appeared, showing that the mission to start an event had been completed. Aiden clicked to view his reward. When Aiden came back to life, he was greeted by a unique system that gave him the privileges of a moderator. With it, Aiden also gained a skill called Command. This skill had previously been used only by the game administrator. Aiden didn't fully understand how it worked, but he assumed he could now edit his status and go anywhere without needing to level up. After reading the notification, a mission appeared instructing him to start an event. Aiden looked at the notification, confused as to why the game allowed him to have such power. A memory of Alice's disappearance flashed in his mind, and Aiden remembered his goal. He needed to destroy the moderator. He realized that if he wanted to get strong, he would have to follow this system. Back in the present, Aiden accepted the reward from his first mission, which granted him the ability to unlock any item. He thought it was a great reward, but his level was still very low, weaker than even a beginner player. He remembered the moderator had called him a bug before deleting him, and Aiden felt a surge of anger. Suddenly, a second mission appeared. Easter egg. Aiden needed to find the egg, and its location was marked on the map. Aiden left his room and saw that it was still dark outside. He decided to wait until morning to complete the mission. The next day, Aiden, now equipped, entered a deserted forest. He was sure this was the location marked on the map, but he didn't expect the egg to be inside a dungeon. Dungeons were places where players went to improve their stats, and Aiden had never needed to go into one before because he was an NPC. But now, having been resurrected and with a mission, he would enter for the first time. Unbeknownst to Aiden, someone was hiding behind a tree, watching his every move. Without wasting time, Aiden enters the dungeon. The entry restriction requires players to be at least level 80. However, as an NPC with the help of the moderator system, Aiden doesn't need to worry about that. Inside, he comes across several mutant monsters. He's shocked, as he's never seen so many before. After all, he never needed to enter a dungeon. He wonders if this is what players have to face when they need to level up. He certainly wouldn't be here if not for the mission. Luckily for Aiden, the monsters don't notice him, and he reaches a door. He tries pushing it with his hands, but it doesn't open. He then uses the system's ability to unlock any item. The command works, and the door opens. Aiden is almost blinded by a strong white light that pours out of the room. The light disappears, and he sees the Easter egg. Just as he's about to touch it, something like a meteor crashes in front of him, nearly hitting him. The protagonist quickly runs to avoid the explosion and looks back, terrified, trying to figure out what just happened. At that moment, the dungeon guardian appears, fully equipped and ready to finish Aiden off. Caught off guard, Aiden is injured. The guardian strikes him, first on his arm, then his shoulder, and finally his face. Aiden, in desperation, realizes he has no choice but to fight back. With no other option, he pulls his sword from its scabbard and charges. Unfortunately, he's hit in the shoulder, but he stands firm and counters with a strike to the guardian's neck. For a brief moment, he believes he's won as the guardian's head falls. However, when he looks at the neck, he sees something like a galaxy emerging from the wound. Suddenly, the guardian punches Aiden in the face with great force, sending him flying. The ground cracks beneath him from the impact. Aiden can't believe the monster is still alive. The guardian picks up his head, reconnects it to his body, and prepares for more. Aiden feels hopeless, but then memories of Alice and his childhood flood his mind. He understands now that he can't give up, especially not after his sister's last words told him to survive. With newfound resolve, Aiden charges at the guardian, wielding a hammer in hand. The guardian's weapon is destroyed in the first strike, and Aiden sees a glimmer of hope. He swings the hammer in every direction, and the guardian starts losing pieces of his armor and limbs, eventually being disassembled down to just his head. Aiden, determined, raises the hammer one final time, aiming for the guardian's head. The screen fills with red notifications. After several intense minutes of fighting, Aiden is victorious. He celebrates his win but is badly injured. The system appears, confirming that the mission is complete. Aiden's body is filled with blue energy as he gains a new skill and levels up to level 3 moderator. He sees that his new skill is called Edit. Aiden looks at his new abilities but decides to review them later, as he's in too much pain. He prepares to leave the dungeon, but as soon as he steps out, he collapses from exhaustion, eventually losing consciousness. The person who had been hiding nearby approaches his body. She lowers her hood and smiles in satisfaction upon seeing him. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, a drone approaches and collects the data, then alerts its superior. The drone reports that the guardian of the dungeon has been eliminated and that evidence of a low-level bug threat has been detected. The drone finishes gathering all the information and sends its report. A little later, Aiden wakes up to find someone holding his hand, guiding his finger to accept a friend request. Instinctively, Aiden pulls his hand back, refusing the request. He then questions who the girl is and what she's doing. The girl introduces herself as Arya. Aiden realizes she's a player and uses his skill to check her status. Arya tells him not to be afraid, saying she's not a bad person. But Aiden is shocked when he sees her karma number. The maximum karma level is 100, but her number is so high that Aiden can't even count it. It seems Arya wasn't being very sincere when she said she was a good person. The number clearly indicates that she's eliminated many players. Understanding this, Aiden asks her to leave. Arya looks disappointed and says she even spent her healing potion on him. Aiden glances at her body and realizes she's telling the truth. His injuries are gone. She says she doesn't want anything in return, which surprises him. Arya explains that she only helped him because he seemed different. Just as she's about to continue, a system notification interrupts their conversation, giving Aiden a new mission. Aiden looks at Arya and realizes she can't see her system window, which makes him feel more comfortable. The new mission asks him to level up. Aiden concludes that Arya is a suspicious player, especially because of her karma number. He decides not to associate with her further. Aiden thanks Arya for her help and tells her he wants to continue on his own. Hours later, Aiden can't stop receiving friend requests. He realizes that since he said goodbye, Arya has been following him. Eventually, unable to ignore the requests any longer, Aiden asks why she won't leave. Arya is surprised and asks if she can't come with him. Aiden doesn't understand why she keeps following him. Arya replies that she's worried he'll get hurt again, so she wants to stay close and protect him. Aiden refuses her help once again. Just then, Arya points behind him and says she was right about needing to protect him. Aiden turns around and is attacked by a green wolf. A whole pack appears, surrounding him. Aiden quickly pulls out a sword from his inventory and takes down the first wolf. Arya sits comfortably on a rock nearby and casually asks if she should help. Aiden thinks for a moment, realizing it's not a bad time to fight. After all, he needs to level up to complete the mission. Meanwhile, in a large room, a man named Royd, a moderator of the game, talks to the drone. The drone informs him that the Easter egg has disappeared. Royd is shocked because the guardian of the dungeon was supposed to be invincible. The drone shows photos of the evidence it collected. Royd carefully examines the guardian's scattered body. He then stands up, deciding he'll need to clean up the mess before the administrator notices. Back in the forest, Aiden finally defeats the entire wolf pack and leans on his sword, exhausted. He never expected that one day he would leave his comfort zone as an NPC and face monsters in the wild. The system confirms a new skill has been acquired, Edit Status. Aiden notices his stats have increased by 2 times, but his experience remains at 0. His HP has risen to 200, while MP, Strength, Agility, and Vitality are all at 20 points. He has 0 karma points. The Edit ability allows him to multiply his stats as many times as he wants. Aiden feels a strong pain in his body due to the increase in his stats. He realizes that the Edit ability is powerful and plans to use it wisely in the future. However, he notices something strange. His level hasn't gone up despite eliminating monsters, and his experience is still 0. To get stronger in this world, one must level up. The game provides 2 ways to do this: complete missions or hunt monsters. Aiden knows this, and for the past several days, he's been hunting countless monsters. But despite all his efforts, in the end, nothing helped. Aiden didn't level up, and he didn't gain any experience. He felt like a failure, but deep down, he knew it was because he was an NPC. He couldn't live like the other players. Arya had been following him throughout his journey and noticed his intense desire to level up. After thinking about it, she approached Aiden and suggested they form a team. At first, Aiden dismissed the idea as nonsense, but then he realized it might be the only way to level up. If they hunted together, they'd be forced to earn team points. The protagonist quickly accepted her offer. Arya, surprised, blinked as she was used to hearing him refuse her suggestions. Without a second thought, she hugged him tightly. Aiden, uncomfortable, asked her not to invade his space. The next morning, the two entered a dungeon. Arya assured Aiden that he could rest while she carried the team. In front of her, several monsters gathered, ready for battle. Arya complained about Aiden not accepting her friend request yet, but he ignored her complaint. Instead, he checked the system, confident that she'd handle the fight. He edited his experience, setting it to 2x so that the points she earned would be multiplied for him. As Arya fought, Aiden's experience points began to rise, and notifications flooded his system. His plan was working. He smiled in victory, focused entirely on the points he was gaining, unaware that he was being watched. Behind a rock, a drone reported to a moderator that a bug had been detected. Arya quickly realized the situation. Aiden, still focused on his points, didn't notice that the drone had been spotted. When he looked up, he saw that Arya had already destroyed the drone. She wasn't sure why it was sent or why it was watching Aiden, but she made it clear. No one was going to interfere with her plans or mess with her man. Later, Aiden finally accepted Arya's friend request. She was thrilled and asked if he had noticed how attractive she was. Aiden, uninterested, told her not to talk nonsense. Soon after, he completed the mission and reached level 30. Despite everything, Aiden still didn't understand why Arya wanted to stay close to him. She seemed suspicious, and her changing expressions made him think. Still, he reasoned it wasn't a bad thing to have her around, which is why he accepted her friend request. Thanks to the mission, Aiden gained a point and used it to upgrade his edit status ability. He began to realize that, at this point, he was neither an NPC nor a player. He was something different, like a moderator still unknown to the game administrators. He understood that this new strength came from his status. Clenching his fist, Aiden thought that if he had this power earlier, maybe he could have saved his sister. Suddenly, while thinking about Alice, Aiden noticed a yellow light in the distance. He felt a familiar energy and ran toward it. Arya, confused, followed him. The two found themselves standing in front of a portal. Aiden asked what it was, and Arya explained that it was a bad sector, a place where the system discards corrupted data, the areas deleted by moderators. These places are neglected, and over time, they become dangerous. Normal players cannot access them, so no one really knows what happens inside. Aiden heard this and decided to approach the portal. Arya, excited, asked if he was going in. Aiden placed his hand on the portal, and it immediately opened. Arya, curious, held onto his shoulder as they stepped through. As they crossed, they weren't identified as players, which surprised Aiden. He asked why she needed to hold on to him, and Arya explained that only moderators or system administrators can enter and exit bad sectors. She couldn't enter alone, so she had to stick with him. This confirmed to Arya that Aiden wasn't an ordinary player. Once they crossed, Aiden realized the place was empty, an ancient village that had collapsed long ago. Suddenly, something moved, and Aiden instinctively drew his sword, ready for battle. He attacked with full force but stopped just before striking when he saw that it was a child. Before Aiden could react further, an arrow shot toward him. He quickly deflected it with his sword. The person in charge, an NPC, called the child by the name Henry and ordered him to take cover. The NPC then asked Aiden and Arya if they were players. They didn't answer. The NPC looked at Aiden and sensed he wasn't an enemy, but when he turned to Arya, he felt a murderous aura. The terrifying energy made him sweat, and the child asked if everything was okay. The NPC feared Arya might attack them. Arya, sensing the tension, smiled and tried to look friendly. At that moment, a man ran toward them and called out to the NPC, "Jake?" He stopped when he saw Aiden and Arya, asking how they had gotten in. Jake, worried, asked what the problem was, and the man replied, "Helen is getting worse." Everyone rushed to find Helen, a little girl with red hair. She was lying in bed, and Nurse Sophia was by her side. Jake asked what had happened, but the nurse didn't know. She only knew that Helen was getting worse. Aiden looked at Helen and felt a familiar pang in his heart. She reminded him of Alice. Suddenly, a red notification from the system appeared in front of him, warning that a bug had been found, but the threat level was low. Another notification followed, stating that Aiden had to eliminate the bug. As Jake continued to try and save Helen, Sophia sadly replied that there was nothing more they could do. Henry, the child, ran to Helen, crying. Jake tried to stop him, fearing the boy would get sick too. Arya sighed, saying it was too late. Jake, desperate, asked if she could help. He believed Arya could save Helen because she was a player. But Arya coldly confessed that this wasn't a disease. It was a bug. Everyone froze, horrified. Jake, terrified, began shouting that even though their city had been destroyed, they never challenged the system. There was no reason they should be punished. Arya, unfazed, explained that one didn't have to challenge the system to become a bug. She said there was no way to save Helen. She was already being consumed by the bug. If they stayed, they'd be caught too and eventually deleted from the game. The NPCs continued to search for a solution, but Aiden stood outside, fuming with anger. He punched the wall, frustrated. The system's notification still lingered, demanding that he eliminate the bug. Aiden, struggling with his emotions, realized he couldn't do it. That's how he lost his sister. Suddenly, another red notification flashed. Do you want to eliminate the bug? The options, yes or no. Shaking, Aiden pressed the no option. He couldn't bring himself to delete the child NPC. Another notification popped up, warning that he would face a severe punishment if he failed the mission. The system asked again, will you eliminate the NPC or not? Aiden snapped, his emotions boiling over. He screamed at the system, asking if this was why he was brought here. To destroy a family just like the system destroyed his? I'm not like that damn moderator, Aiden yelled, punching the notification. I'll find another way. Determined, Aiden opened the door with all his strength and shouted at the 5 residents of the village, you need to leave, now. He was ready to protect them at all costs. Aiden tells the villagers that he will do everything he can. Logan asks if he can cure Helen. Aiden replies, unsure, that he isn't certain. Just then, Henry grabs Aiden's shirt and pleads with him to save his little sister. Aiden bends over next to the bed, placing his hand on Helen's head. He activates his edit ability and unlocks it. Suddenly, an explosion shakes the room, and everyone looks on in shock. Aiden finds himself transported to another universe, as if he were the very brain of the system. He floats, seeing Helen connected to several cables. Aiden recalls that a bug occurs when people challenge the system. He draws his sword and begins cutting the wires attached to her. This, he believes, is the only way to save her. As he cuts, Helen begins to float, surrounded by a red light. But then, Aiden notices something else. There are 4 other NPCs, each also connected to wires. Aiden cuts their connections too, desperate to prevent them from becoming bugged. A powerful light consumes the NPCs, followed by an explosion that destroys everything. Aiden opens his eyes, tired and asking himself if he succeeded. A notification pops up, confirming that the hidden mission is complete. He has earned a new ability called Delete. Another notification reveals that Aiden is now a resident of Urzj village. Aiden turns around, relieved to see that everyone is alive. Suddenly, Arya begins pouring a healing potion on him. Aiden tries to stop her, saying that he's fine, but she pinches his cheeks, reminding him that she always has to worry about him. Jake approaches, thanking Aiden for healing Helen. Aiden receives another notification from the system, saying that the 5 residents of Urzj village are finally free. At that moment, screens appear above the NPCs' heads, displaying their names and levels. Aiden wonders what freed means. He remembers that when he cut the wires, he felt a murderous aura coming from a giant slime. Without thinking, Aiden had attacked the creature responsible for the bug, and that was what healed the villagers. Aiden realizes that being freed means the villagers no longer have to follow the system's rules. They are now ordinary players. He smiles, glad everything has turned out well. Jake pulls Aiden from his thoughts by asking if he's an operator of the system. Aiden looks confused, and Jake clarifies that a system operator is the term for the best players chosen by moderators. Jake is certain that Aiden used the system to save Helen, but if he isn't an operator, then Jake can't explain the miracle. Regardless, he thanks Aiden and says he has a request. Suddenly, all the villagers bow, asking if they can follow him. Aiden is taken aback, unsure of what to do next. Arya places a hand on his shoulder, her aura frightening. She tells him that he changed the fate of these people, and whatever he decides, they will accept. Aiden feels a strange energy, and when he looks back, Arya changes her expression to something friendlier. She says that the final decision depends on him. Aiden senses that Arya knows more than she lets on, and it's unsettling. He turns back to the villagers and tells them he will accept everyone, but first, he will give each of them something important. Later in the afternoon, everyone gathers around a large meal. Someone comments that it's been a long time since they've seen so much food. Jake and Aiden watch the villagers enjoying themselves, and Henry and Helen taste everything eagerly. Jake thanks Aiden, saying the kids will be fine now. Aiden asks how the village ended up like this. Jake explains that it used to be a beautiful place, a great place to live. Players would always visit, but one day, a moderator arrived and decided to delete everything, including the NPCs. Jake adds that they received help from an unknown person, someone whose powers saved them. Since then, only he and 4 others remained. They've been doing their best to survive, and now they are a family. Hearing the word family makes Aiden think of Alice. Arya, upstairs, spots a trunk in the corner of the house and quickly draws everyone's attention. She asks what's inside. Logan explains that it's an integrated storage chest, a special item that only players can use. It's connected to the system, so it can be used anywhere. Aiden is shocked to learn of such an item. Logan adds that, in the past, his job was to take care of the chest. But after the village was destroyed, the chest couldn't be opened. Aiden decides to check if it really can't be opened. He approaches and uses his unlocking ability. The chest opens, revealing a variety of items: money, healing potions, armor, swords, and much more. Everyone stares at the inventory in awe. After a few minutes, Aiden improves and shares the items with everyone. Jake asks if it's really okay for them to keep everything. Aiden responds that it's fine. He has plenty of money and materials saved up, so it's no problem to share with people who have nothing. At that moment, something catches Aiden's attention. Arya asks if she won't get anything. He sighs and tells her she already has enough things. Arya pouts, upset, while Aiden notes that he's received many items, so he won't have to worry about money or food for a long time. The equipment he's gotten is incredibly powerful. Aiden realizes that these items were part of a system error. Elsewhere in the game, another player opens a chest after completing a mission, but finds nothing inside. He complains to the community, asking the administrators where his items are. Aiden already suspects this is a game glitch. He figures a moderator will eventually resolve the issue by compensating the player with rewards. It's not his problem. Aiden recalls that among all the items he received, one thing stood out: a space he can use to store or remove equipment whenever necessary. He can even store anything inside it. The scene shifts back to when Aiden first opened the chest and began checking the inventory. He felt something else in the box, a dark fog. Reaching in, he tried to pull out an item, only to be greeted by a notification that he had been synced with the system. The synchronization percentage slowly climbed until it reached 100%. Finally, Aiden managed to pull the item out, which instantly integrated into his hand. At that moment, Aiden realized he had gained the space, a feature he hadn't thought possible, but he was sure it would be very useful in the future. Back in the present, Jake approaches Aiden once more, thanking him for everything he has done. The food will be enough for a long time. Jake, not wanting to simply take, offers to fulfill any task Aiden asked. Aiden responds that they can leave and live on their own now. They're no longer NPCs. Jake asks if Aiden doesn't like the village, and Aiden says that he has a place to go. Mentally, Aiden thinks that he needs to get as far away from here as possible. As an NPC, he knows when an inspection is coming. These inspections are meant to find bugs, and Aiden has already been identified as one. He fears that if he stays, he'll be deleted and that these villagers might be dragged down with him. Seeing the sadness on their faces, Aiden makes a decision. Aiden assures the villagers that he will return when he can, so they won't need to be sad. The villagers smile upon hearing this and promise to leave the village prepared for his return. After that, Aiden says goodbye and sets off on his journey with Arya. A little later, they're walking a bit farther from the village. Arya asks why he's leaving in such a hurry. Aiden looks tired and says that they could have stayed a few more days. He lies, saying he's leaving early because there will be an inspection in a few days, and he wants to level up. At that moment, Arya's face darkens and she asks, "What do you mean? You're not a player." Aiden turns around with an extremely scared expression. Arya realizes she's guessed correctly. She coldly comments that she didn't expect such a reaction. Then, she suddenly changes her tone, becomes cheerful, and jokingly says, "Of course, you're not a player." She bursts into laughter. Aiden, serious, asks when she realized. Arya thinks for a moment and says she figured it out when his village was deleted. Aiden puts his hand on his head, realizing she knew from the beginning. Arya assures him she'll do her best to keep him from being found by any moderators or operators. Suddenly, she presses her body against his and says she won't let anyone eliminate him. The conversation feels strange to Aiden, especially the way she presents herself as someone powerful. Just then, a red notification flashes between them, informing them that an emergency inspection will start in 15 seconds. Aiden starts to sweat coldly. He wasn't expecting this. The countdown ticks down. Arya asks what's happening, and Aiden shouts that an emergency inspection is about to begin. Arya, with wide eyes, asks if he has access to this information. Aiden desperately asks what a player does in this situation. Arya tells him to calm down, but suddenly, a hole opens in the sky, and everything turns to night. A notification appears, announcing the arrival of the emergency inspection. Aiden feels his body begin to fall apart as he floats in a white light. Desperately, he asks Arya what's happening and how he can escape. Arya coldly tells him not to worry and to wait. Aiden screams as the light consumes him, asking what he should expect. Suddenly, he disappears and reappears in a different place. He falls to the ground and looks ahead, seeing several players. A bulletin board appears, saying the inspection is underway and he must wait with the other players. Aiden, an NPC, had always wondered where players went during the inspection, as they would usually disappear. Now, he finally knows and feels relieved to be in this environment. Aiden looks around but realizes that Arya hasn't arrived yet. He decides to gather some information while he waits. As he walks past several players, he sees how strong they are. Using his skill, he notices some of them exceed level 200. It's intimidating to be so close to them. As he walks, searching for Arya, someone announces that the inspection is over. A player approaches and asks what happens after the inspection. The player jokingly replies, "This is where the real inspection begins." Aiden notices a group of players talking in a strange manner and decides it's better to blend in. But just as he's trying to do so, he bumps into a player. The blonde player immediately glares at him, asking if Aiden is blind. Aiden feels the situation could turn dangerous if he attracts attention. Suddenly, the blonde player throws a punch toward his face, but a hand intervenes. Another player appears, stepping in to prevent the confrontation. He argues that Aiden has a low ranking, and the blonde player shouldn't fight someone like him. It's dishonest. The blonde player doesn't back down, asking if the new player wants to fight. The newcomer looks at the blonde and notices an important emblem on his shirt. The people around them recognize this player, who saved Aiden as a member of the Griffin Guild, one of the 5 top guilds, known for having the highest ranking players and being the most famous guild in the game. The crowd murmurs that the blonde player is in trouble. Realizing the situation, the blonde player reluctantly backs off, saying he'll let it go this time. Aiden thanks the newcomer for his help, and the player smiles, saying it was nothing. He introduces himself as Kevin. Aiden also introduces himself. Kevin assumes Aiden is a new player and explains that the aggressive players often target those who are weak or beginners, which Aiden already knew. Kevin then makes a surprising offer. He invites Aiden to join his guild. Aiden is taken aback and says that it probably wouldn't be much help to them, but Kevin insists, explaining that his guild doesn't have a specific goal. Over time, fewer novice players have appeared, and now guilds are trying to recruit beginners to teach them what they know. Kevin adds that he's not pressuring Aiden, but would like him to join his team. He says goodbye, promising that if Aiden ever changes his mind, he's welcome to join. After Kevin leaves, Aiden has a good impression of him. He remembers how, in the past, he hated players, especially those who frequented his store. But Kevin feels different from all of them. Suddenly, Arya jumps onto Aiden's shoulder, startling him. She asks if he's surprised. Aiden asks when she arrived, and Arya explains she was late because she was taking care of something. At that moment, she points out the blonde player who had trouble with Aiden earlier. The blonde is visibly beaten. Aiden comments that if she keeps going like this, her karma will explode. Arya, a bit disappointed, says she expected a thank you, not a reprimand. They continue walking among the players, and Arya asks how Aiden's first experience here was. Aiden replies that it wasn't a big deal. As they walk away, someone is watching them. In a dark room, a group of operators is gathered. A cat-eared girl named Mia asks where Royd went after the inspection. Selena, a level 400 operator, tells her to calm down, saying that Royd wouldn't act without thinking first. Just then, a fully masked operator named Xenon, level 445, enters. He explains that Royd found a bug and is probably preparing to eliminate it. Selena says it will be fun, and Mia demands to see the screen immediately. The scene shifts to a drone's view, showing the players after the inspection. They are told the inspection is over, and someone asks if there are any updates. Another player responds that it was probably just a routine bug cleanup. Arya finds this early closure strange because moderators don't usually do that. She senses something is wrong. Suddenly, all the players are engulfed in a white light. Arya realizes she's interfering with the game and quickly turns to Aiden, warning him that someone is coming to eliminate him. She grabs him and promises she will do everything to stop it. Arya screams that she needs him as she's slowly consumed by the light. Suddenly, there's an explosion, and all the players disappear. Aiden is left alone in an open field. Horror fills his face as he wonders why he was the only one left behind. Meanwhile, Arya is sent back to the forest, exploding with anger. Blue energy swirls around her as she destroys everything in her path. Back in the open field, Aiden hears Arya's words repeating in his mind, that someone is coming to delete him. He had expected something like this, but now that it's happening, fear grips him. Just then, someone approaches from behind. Aiden turns around and sees moderator Lloyd, accompanied by some operators. Lloyd looks at Aiden and says, "You're a bug I've never seen before." Aiden feels a surge of anger as the operator approaches. Aiden dodges the operator's hand and quickly pulls out his sword to defend himself. Suddenly, a powerful blue lightning bolt strikes the field and hits the operator in the head. Aiden has no idea what just happened or who intervened. The operator stumbles backward, clutching his head. Surprised by another operator approaching, Aiden raises his shield just in time to block the attack. However, he begins to lose strength under the pressure. An idea crosses his mind, and he activates his ability to edit his stats. His stats are multiplied, and with renewed strength, Aiden is able to knock down the enemy. But before he can breathe a sigh of relief, a third operator attacks, wrapping a rope around his body. Aiden is thrown into a stone wall with such force that it destroys everything around him. The third operator readies for another strike. Aiden uses his unlock ability to break free from the rope. Without hesitation, he charges at the operator, fists raised. Aiden multiplies his attack power by 3 and delivers a devastating blow, obliterating the operator and sending his remains scattering. Aiden doesn't stop there. He swiftly strikes the second operator in the head. Just as Aiden takes a deep breath, a voice interrupts him. Lloyd, the moderator, says, disappointing. "I thought you'd be a high-level bug after destroying the dungeon keeper, but I see I was wrong." Aiden turns to face the voice, and Lloyd immediately covers his mouth, saying, "I even invented an emergency inspection to find you faster." He opens his system interface and presses the option to delete the bug. Aiden suddenly feels a heavy energy suppressing his body, and the ground beneath him begins to crumble. He floats, surrounded by a white light. For a moment, he thinks about the moderator. "This guy's nothing compared to the one who destroyed my family," Aiden mutters. A surge of red fury fills his eyes, and he rushes to attack Lloyd. He lands a punch squarely on Lloyd's face, sending him staggering backward. Lloyd is confused. "What's going wrong? Why can you still move?" he wonders. Suddenly, a system message appears for Lloyd. "You have entered into conflict with administrative power. The target cannot be deleted." Lloyd's eyes widen in disbelief. "Is my power not enough?" he asked. The operators watching the scene begin to murmur. They wonder if Aiden possesses the power of an administrator. Meanwhile, Lloyd opens more windows on his system, only to find that all attempts to read Aiden's data are blocked due to insufficient permissions. Lloyd, unable to believe what he's seeing, asks Aiden, "What's your name?" Aiden clenches his fist. He knows he's weak from the battle with the operator guards and realizes that confronting Lloyd directly isn't possible. Lloyd considers the situation, thinking that letting Aiden go would be a huge problem for the system. If the administrator finds out, it could be a catastrophe. To hide his lack of power, Lloyd decides to hold Aiden there. The other operators continue observing. Selena comments, "It looks like Lloyd is going to use that." Xenon, however, thinks Lloyd won't be reckless. Selena replies, "Well, it's the first time I've seen Lloyd use his own form of execution." Aiden, filled with fear, watches as Lloyd's appearance changes. Now fully armored in iron, Lloyd wields a massive sword. Without wasting any time, he attacks Aiden. Aiden activates the space he obtained from the chest and aims it at the moderator. A deafening explosion follows, followed by a thick cloud of smoke. As it dissipates, Aiden sees a massive crater, evidence of the power they've both unleashed. Lloyd, slightly impressed, acknowledges Aiden's block. He realizes that his attack was absorbed by the space in Aiden's hand. But before he can react, Aiden swings the sword, placing it against his neck, demanding to know how he acquired the power of the administrators. Aiden takes a deep breath and listens to Lloyd's threats about eliminating him. Anger rises within him again as he summons the space. "You'll have to figure out how I got the power of the administrators," Aiden replies. Lloyd stares at the space Aiden has formed, noting that it's much larger than before. Suddenly, Aiden steps into the space, vowing to return and destroy Lloyd. Lloyd tries to stop him, but it's too late. Aiden disappears into the space. Lloyd is left dumbfounded. "How could everything go wrong today?" he mutters. "No one should be able to leave this field without my permission." The scene shifts to several players standing in front of a chest. They check their inventory but find it empty. Someone comments that other chests are also empty, likely due to a bug. At that moment, a dark aura emanates from the chest, drawing their attention. Suddenly, Aiden emerges from the chest, causing the players to scream in shock. He collapses onto the ground, exhausted, while the players continue discussing the strange bugs happening with the items. The scene changes again to the operators. Xenon asks Lloyd to come back, as they need to discuss how to eliminate the bug. Lloyd replies that Aiden is too dangerous and that he'll handle it himself. He adds that he will send them for data analysis. Mia refuses, saying she has something more important to do. She turns to Lloyd and asks if he's going to stop her. Lloyd answers no, and Mia walks off, complaining about the trouble she's facing. Suddenly, Mia hears something in her ear and turns around. Arya, surrounded by dark energy, asks what happened. "I knew that lunatic was suspicious," Arya says, her tone icy. Mia remains silent and Arya, with an angry aura, says, "It's been a while since I've seen him." The next day in Mykeene, Aiden realizes he can't contact Arya. He mentally apologizes, telling her that he won't be able to wait much longer. Even with the space, he knows he can still be found by that moderator. He puts on a hood and enters a tunnel. Minutes later, Aiden emerges in a very poor village. He tells himself that it's the first time in many years he's been in such an unhealthy place. The last time he passed through something like this was when he met Alice. Suddenly, he hears a noise. When he looks up, he sees a drone. Quickly, Aiden hides behind a wall, wondering if there's anywhere that the moderator isn't watching. His attention is drawn to some yellow lights forming a path. The same light that appeared when he found the portal in the destroyed village. Aiden decides to follow the lights. He reaches a dead end where the light shines even more brightly. He raises his hand towards the light, and at that moment, a pink light intensifies on the wall and begins to crack. Aiden wonders if it's another secret portal. Believing he has nothing to lose, Aiden activates the unlock ability. The door opens and a warning window appears, advising that entering the portal is not recommended, as it will no longer be supported by the game system. Aiden laughs at the warning. "The game wants to delete me anyway," he says. "Not relying on me is the best option." Without hesitation, Aiden steps through the portal. He finds himself in an underground village, which, unlike a dungeon, gives him some relief. He starts walking down the corridor, trying to understand where he is. Suddenly, a woman with a tired appearance appears before him. Both of them are clearly not expecting to meet anyone in this place. Aiden tries to speak with her, but she runs. He begins to follow her, determined to uncover what's going on. The woman disappears into the crowd, shouting that there is an intruder. Aiden finds himself surrounded by many people and wonders if they're all NPCs. Suddenly, something flies toward him. He barely manages to defend himself in time. The woman who threw the stones demands to know how he got here. Aiden realizes she's using spells and draws his sword. She assumes he's a player and immediately summons several stones. "Now I have no reason to hold back," she says. As she casts her spells, two men appear behind her. They call her by the name Siri and offer help, but she refuses. Aiden observes that none of these people have a class. Only a threat level appears above their heads: low, medium, or high. It's then that he realizes they're all bugs, just like him. He shouts, trying to explain there's been a misunderstanding, but the villagers think he's stalling. Siri explains that this place was built by Lord Sirius himself, and no one could enter unless they were an administrator. Any other player must be eliminated. She declares that she'll destroy him, but just then, a voice orders her to stop. The villagers recognize it as Mr. Sirius. Siri tries to explain, but the voice simply states that Aiden is not an enemy. It instructs Siri to bring him to him. She hesitates but agrees. The two walk down a corridor. Siri makes it clear she doesn't trust him, warning that if he tries anything funny, he'll be punished. Aiden responds that he understands, but he can't help his curiosity. He asks how they survived the inspection. Siri explains that they were all saved by Mr. Sirius, who even created this area. She adds sadly that they would have been deleted if Sirius hadn't appeared. Soon, they reach a dead end and Siri cries out, "We're here." Aiden looks up, horror overtaking his face as he sees Mr. Sirius, a massive dragon. The dragon's deep voice thanks Aiden for coming and calls him an administrator. Still frozen in place, Aiden wonders how a dragon could exist here. A sign appears above Sirius, marking him as a guardian. There's another blurred name before that, but Aiden can't read it. He realizes that Sirius is no ordinary NPC. Dragons were once a part of the game, but they were thought to be extinct, only existing in legend. No one had ever encountered a real one. Sirius asks if Aiden is the new moderator. Aiden doesn't know how to respond. The dragon adds that he can see his memories and is pleased to have found him. Sirius explains that he has an ability called Dragon Eyes, which lets him see the true nature of others. The dragon mentions Helen and expresses surprise that someone could cleanse a bug. Siri is taken aback by this. Suddenly, a white light bursts from Sirius as he says he's happy to have finally found the last fated. The enormous dragon transforms into a normal man and asks Aiden if he can hear his last request. Siri is shocked to see Mr. Sirius in human form. A new mission appears for Aiden, instructing him to protect the NPCs. Siri talks to the Guardian, saying that his mana will run out if he continues in this form. Sirius replies that it's fine. Aiden, unsure whether to accept, decides to listen to the request. They move to a room full of NPCs. Siri orders everyone to leave, saying that she needs to speak with Aiden and Sirius alone. In his human form, Sirius shows Aiden a crystal ball, displaying all the NPCs. He asks Aiden to heal them and take them to his village. Sirius explains that everyone here was caught by the bug. He managed to save them by guiding them to safety during inspections, but there's a limit to his abilities. The Guardian pulls up his shirt, revealing the size of the curse attached to his body. He says he can no longer protect them, as he can't suppress the bug anymore. A warning window suddenly appears, indicating a high-level threat. This is the most powerful bug Aiden has ever encountered. Sirius admits that he doesn't expect to be cured. He's already consumed. He only asks Aiden to care for the other NPCs, promising to give him what is most precious to him. Siri intervenes, not wanting that to happen, but the Guardian says he has no other reward to offer and asks for her forgiveness. Siri begins to cry. Aiden takes a deep breath and tells Sirius that he doesn't want the star. He doesn't even know what it means, but promises to do his best to save everyone. The mission is accepted. Downstairs, the NPCs wonder if Aiden can really clear the bug. Siri replies that she doesn't know how, but they have to trust him because Sirius believed in him. Aiden and Sirius stand together at the altar, bathed in a red light. A spell appears beneath Aiden's feet, and he floats, entering the system's core. He quickly sees that all the NPCs are connected by wires, but he chooses to focus on the dragon, who has the most severe condition. The bug is directly connected to Sirius's chest, exuding an incredibly powerful aura. Aiden prepares to attack, but is suddenly stopped by a thread that binds him and throws him aside. He realizes that the bug is trying to consume him too. Determined, he uses the unlock ability, breaking free from the thread. He shouts for the bug to disappear. A massive explosion rocks the area, and everyone sees a burst of white light. The NPCs wonder if it worked. Sirius falls to his knees, and Siri rushes to help him. As the villagers gather around, the dragon notices his mark fading. Siri sees that he's been healed. Aiden smiles, remembering his promise to save them. The villagers look at him proudly, and Aiden declares that from now on, they will no longer be eliminated by the bug. A notification window appears, confirming that 50 residents have been freed. The NPCs celebrate their salvation. Sirius approaches Aiden and thanks him from the bottom of his heart. He promises never to forget what Aiden did. Everything seems to be ending well, until Aiden feels a chill run down his spine. A threatening voice says, "You almost didn't get a new puppet." Behind him, a giant, completely consumed by the bug, appears. The faceless entity, with 2 horns, declares that Aiden has ruined its plans. Aiden freezes in fear as a warning flashes across his screen. Life risk detected. The system begins malfunctioning. A new warning appears, stating that skills have been restricted, and commands no longer work. The entity is identified as a virus, but its threat level cannot be seen. Shortly after, the system shuts down. Sirius stares in terror at the monster before him, recalling memories of the past. He was sure this entity had been eliminated. The virus looks at Sirius and laughs, mocking him. It asks if Sirius truly believed it would disappear so easily. It regrets not waiting a bit longer, saying that if it had, the city would have also been infected, just like Sirius's previous home. The dragon's fury builds as he instinctively begins to transform. The virus taunts, asking if it angered him, and adds, "I wasn't responsible for all the damage. In fact, it was all." The entity tells Sirius that there's no reason to keep such hatred in his heart, since the administrators decided to delete him. It adds that it isn't here because of Sirius. Suddenly, in the blink of an eye, the monster closes the distance and appears in front of the hero. It declares that it no longer needs Sirius, because it's found someone better. Aiden has no time to react before the entity strikes, touching him in the stomach. His body is instantly infected. Sirius casts a spell, reminding the virus that the issue is between them and that there's no need to attack others. But then, the monster triggers the bug in all players, causing them to be infected again. The entity explains that it no longer matters, as they're hiding in an underground village, where even the moderators don't know of their existence. No one will be able to save them. At that moment, the virus hears a noise and notices that Aiden hasn't been fully consumed yet. For some reason, he's still resisting. Aiden starts to sweat, realizing that if he doesn't act, he'll be eliminated. He calls on the system and activates the unlock ability, but the system informs him that an error has occurred. The entity mocks his failed attempt. It tells him that whatever Aiden tried to do, it's impossible to escape. After all, the boy doesn't even have the wall of fire. Aiden, exhausted, stops resisting and is consumed. He's transported to a purple space, where suddenly, a yellow light fills the area. A translucent girl appears and gently touches his face. Aiden feels an overwhelming familiarity. Looking at her, he recognizes her as Alice. Then, an explosion rocks the space. The entity sees Aiden breaking through his own barrier. A notification appears, informing that a new system is being built. The protagonist shouts the word command, then aims at the entity and uses the delete command. The monster feels its body disintegrating and screams, demanding to know how someone who isn't even an operator can have the delete button. At that moment, Aiden gains an administrator-level passive ability called Wall of Fire. Aiden declares that he'll rid himself of the power that tried to consume him. Meanwhile, all the NPCs in the underground city and Urged village are surrounded by a defensive light, created by Aiden. He tells them that now he can safely destroy the virus. Suddenly, the entity starts laughing. Aiden asks what's so funny. The virus reveals that it's finally found someone worth dueling. Aiden is the one they've been looking for all along. It promises that one day the hero will belong to it. After that, the virus disintegrates into the air. Sirius approaches, asking if Aiden is okay. Aiden responds affirmatively. The dragon comments that the boy is truly amazing, even capable of using the delete option. Sirius adds that he never thought he'd feel so useless. Since the system stopped working, he's been powerless. It's even shameful to bear the title of guardian deity in this situation. But, he says, it's good that everything's over. He decides to destroy the foreign body left by the deity before it can turn into something dangerous. The dragon rushes toward the bug's remains with power in his hand, intending to destroy it. But as he gets close, the dragon is pierced through every part of his body. Both Aiden and Siri look horrified. The entity takes form again, taunting that Sirius must have forgotten that its skill is production and self-replication. Aiden, now armed with a gun, rushes to cut the wires piercing the dragon's body. The guardian falls to the ground, and Siri hurries over to check on him. Aiden grits his teeth, wondering how the virus is still alive when he's sure it was deleted. The bug laughs, calling him a fool. It multiplies into several smaller bugs, warning Aiden that he's been deleted several times before and no one can get rid of it unless they're at the moderator level. Aiden tries again to destroy it, using the delete command on the clones, but the virus laughs again, saying that Aiden won't stand a chance. Determined, Aiden grabs another sword from his space, but it breaks almost immediately. He realizes there's no point in improving his weapons, as they don't fare well against creatures that aren't from the game. After countless battles and broken equipment, the monster asks if Aiden isn't tired. Aiden takes a deep breath, knowing there's no way to destroy it. For some reason, the bug keeps multiplying. The virus then decides it's tired of playing and says it will swallow the problem all at once. Aiden is once again enveloped by the purple aura, but he tries to resist. The entity tells him it's useless and that he must accept his fate. Meanwhile, Siri is still trying to help Sirius. She promises to heal him with magic, but the dragon says it's impossible, and Siri knows it. Desperately, she begins to cry. Sirius reveals that he doesn't have much time left and will likely turn into a virus soon. He tells Siri to stay away or she'll be in danger. Siri cries, saying it's not fair, especially since he'd just been given a second chance at life. Sirius apologizes and places his hand over his chest, asking her to use this power to help Aiden. As the protagonist is still enveloped by the bug and weakening, he suddenly remembers something. He grabs the hammer he got from Alice. It's the only piece of equipment that hasn't broken. The hammer radiates an unknown power. Aiden wastes no time and activates the delete command. When the hammer strikes the monster, an explosion occurs. The virus screams, asking how this is possible, since only those authorized by a moderator can wield such a weapon. Aiden hadn't expected to be able to use a command on the hammer either. Regardless, the virus is still alive and mocks him, saying that his luck isn't enough. Just then, a system notification appears, informing Aiden that he's received a reward. Aiden is shocked when he sees that it's Sirius's star. He looks back to see Siri crying, her hand raised, asking him to use it. Aiden agrees, activating the power of the star in the hammer, then strikes the virus again. This time, the bug screams in pain as it begins to reform. It stares at Aiden, who is now holding an incredibly powerful sword, and says it's the first time it's seen something like this. The system identifies the equipment as Aiden's exclusive execution sword. The bug feels itself being broken in half and realizes it can no longer create clones. It wonders how this is possible, since only administrators and Trojans could destroy it. Aiden keeps swinging the sword, pushing forward. The virus retreats, saying it thought it could take Aiden whole, but now it will have to destroy him. It spreads a powerful bug throughout the area, blaming Aiden for it all. If he had accepted his fate from the start, none of this would have happened. Aiden focuses on his next attack. He selects the delete command and his sword glows red. He charges, cutting through the virus's spell with all his strength. This time, the entity has no chance against Aiden. It's destroyed in an instant, the attack so powerful that it lifts all the stones from the top of the underground village. Aiden collapses to the ground, exhausted. Meanwhile, deep within the bad sector, a figure feels one of his clones has been lost. He remarks that it was probably deleted by an operator or an old guard. Curious about how his clone's last moments unfolded, he decides to check. An image of Aiden holding the sword appears before him. The white-haired man says the boy could be of use to him. The photo seems interesting, and he's intrigued by Aiden's potential. This man, also a virus, is known as Worm. He turns to the side and asks if Trojan shares his thoughts about the boy. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted by a fire that consumes the area. Worm tries to understand what happened, but an explosion tears through the body of the virus. It laughs, saying that an unexpected visitor has arrived. In front of him appears a girl, consumed by flames and responsible for the attack. The virus quickly recognizes her, Mia. Very angry, Mia says she finally found him. He's been hiding so well. The place continues to be ravaged by fire. Worm disappears and reappears behind Mia, asking how she knew where he was. But he dismisses it, saying it's not important. He warns her that she made a mistake coming here without an administrator and adds that she's underestimating her power. Mia thinks back to when Arya approached her that day. Arya had told her where Worm was. She said she sensed the presence of the virus in the bad sector. At the time, Mia hadn't fully believed it, but she decided to see for herself. Now, she feels like a failure as an operator for not having figured out the virus's location sooner. Still, she's encouraged by the fact that she's the only one who can destroy it. Suddenly, Mia shoots, attacking Worm with fire. The virus quickly defends itself and counters with a swarm of bugs. Mia is ensnared by wires and can't move. The bugs advance and form a large ball, trapping her inside. Worm mocks her, saying that's why she should have brought at least one old guard with her. But then, the ball explodes, and when the virus looks for Mia, she's gone. He scans the area, and suddenly, a blue light strikes him. Worm is thrown back with great force. Mia appears, much stronger than before, and asks, who should be underestimated now? She makes it clear that this time, she will delete him once and for all. The scene shifts to Sirius, who is slowly being erased. Sirius cries as he says goodbye. He starts to remember how he got here. In the past, he was just a white dragon imprisoned by the administrator. He didn't understand why innocent people were being erased by the one who should protect them. Sirius recalls that his mission, given by the administrator, was to protect people. So he asks himself, why has the administrator changed so much? Sirius saw through the man's mask and realized he was laughing. It was hard for the dragon to accept that the administrator found joy in the despair of others. The administrator explains that the more the system updates, the more viruses appear. He can no longer allow them to roam freely. That day, the administrator decided to imprison Sirius forever, seeing him as a threat to the system. So the dragon was blocked. Years passed, and Sirius gave up on his angelic appearance. He was convinced he couldn't change anything. But one day, a little girl appeared. He soon noticed several humans who kept their distance in fear. Over time, Sirius realized that the villagers didn't care about him. They used him as a tourist attraction to make money. But the little girl made sure to feed him and keep him company. Sirius asked her if she had a family. She said no. So, he decided to take care of her. He named her Siri. The girl celebrated, happy to stay with him. As the days went by, Sirius noticed that she was different from other NPCs. She had a natural talent for magic and learned protection methods quickly. But still, Siri was human, and the dragon knew he couldn't keep her with him forever. When she became a teenager, he sent her to a human village. She adapted well there. After that, Sirius felt his mission was complete, but he was happy to have spent so much time with her. His happiness didn't last long, though, because the virus appeared again. The dragon could feel the power of the monster and, with all his anger, broke the chains that had bound him. He wasted no time and went in search of Siri. The system warned him that if he left his area, he would receive no assistance. Meanwhile, the virus carefully observed the village. When it sensed the operators knew of its appearance, it decided to retreat. But the dragon managed to break the blockade and emerged in front of the virus. However, the monster had already activated teleportation. Sirius asked if the virus was responsible for this. The virus laughed, saying he was too late. Everyone was already infected, but it would leave something different in Sirius. That day, the dragon was cursed with a new mark on his chest. The virus said its goodbyes, promising it would find him and asking not to be deleted until then. The monster disappeared. The operators, knowing the virus was active and many were already infected, launched an emergency inspection to delete all the bugs. The dragon received a system message about the inspection and knew he had to act fast to save the villagers. He declared that he couldn't lose Siri and activated the teleportation system over the village. The scene shifts back a few years to when Sirius was just a baby dragon. The administrator gave him his name and tasked him with protecting lost people. This mission was Sirius's purpose throughout his life. Back to the present, we see the administrator watching two NPCs. Meanwhile, the protagonist manages to use Crab's teleportation magic to bring everyone Sirius protected to his village. Aiden thanks Sirius for helping them arrive without any issues. He reassures them that they'll be safe in Urzj village, just a little further ahead. At that moment, Siri calls Aiden, thanking him for bringing everyone. If not for him, they would have all been deleted. But Siri also wants to thank Aiden for deleting Sirius. She says her father would have become a virus, and that would have been the worst possible fate. She thanks Aiden for freeing her father from that fate. Siri also says that everyone is willing to serve him. A system notification then pops up, informing Aiden that Siri and 50 other people have been registered as residents of Urzj village. Aiden is happy to have their support. They continue walking toward the village. Curious, Aiden asks Siri what the Sirius star was. She replies that she doesn't fully understand it, but believes it's the source of the dragon's power. It was the most precious thing Sirius had. Aiden realizes how powerful it must have been because that's what helped raise his moderator level. Without the power of the star, he would never have defeated that virus. Just then, Siri announces that they've arrived in the village. Someone asks if this is his village. Aiden confirms, saying it just needs some renovations. The village residents approach, celebrating Aiden's return. They tell him they've been waiting for him. Aiden asks if they knew he was coming back. Jake replies, yes, someone arrived earlier to warn them. The protagonist is surprised by this and, just then, someone jumps onto his shoulders. Aiden looks back and sees Arya smiling, happily celebrating his return. But suddenly, Arya's tone changes. She says she was worried but promises she won't leave him alone again. As we saw in the previous video, the residents of the village approach and celebrate Aiden's return, saying that they were waiting for him. The protagonist asks if they knew about his return. Jake replies yes because someone arrived earlier to warn them. Aiden is surprised by this information and suddenly someone jumps on his shoulders. He looks back and sees Arya smiling. The girl happily celebrates her return. Suddenly she changes her tone of voice and says that from now on she will no longer leave him alone. Ciri feels something bad when she sees Arya and can't hide how scared she is. The power she emanates seems even greater than that of the dragon Sirius. The protagonist calls Arya and asks what she has been doing all this time that she has not contacted him. The girl says that he will know soon. At that moment something falls from the sky right behind him. Everyone seems scared, wondering if it was a person. The residents remember Mia and think it is better to run from the operator, but another villager says that they won't run away because they are no longer bugs. The protagonist, completely angry, wonders why these operators don't leave him alone. He knows that to win he will have to catch her off guard, so he removes the hammer from the cover without making a sound. Suddenly Mia starts crying and apologizes for losing again. She runs into Arya's arms as she begs for forgiveness. Arya consoles her by saying that she did what she could. The protagonist looks at the scene full of question marks in her head. The blue-haired girl decides to introduce the operator Mia to everyone and makes it clear that this girl is the one she trusts the most. This surprises Aiden because no one in that game should trust superiors. The scene changes to a few minutes later. Everyone settles in the only house they have in the village. The protagonist does not hide that he is not happy with Mia's presence in that place. Ciri and the other villagers notice the tense atmosphere. Aiden asks what Arya thought when she decided to bring a carrier who wants to erase them. Mia defends herself by saying that she just does her job. Eliminating bugs is necessary to keep everything working properly. The protagonist does not accept this answer and shouts that there must be another way, but Mia says that there is no other way than to delete them. Aiden says that she is lying because he can fix the bug instead of eliminating them. The operator says that this is impossible and accuses him of lying. Arya asks them to calm things down and Mia replies that she can't stay in the same place as a liar, nor do moderators have the power to fix bugs. Arya's face darkens and she asks if Aiden intends to become a real moderator. She leaves no way out and says that the only way to fulfill his goals is to be a moderator. The protagonist thinks that being an operator is already a distant dream, so becoming a moderator is practically impossible. Aiden asks why the girl wants him to be a moderator so much. Arya is direct and says that her intention is to remove the current moderator from his position. Clearly it was not the answer the protagonist expected. Arya says she can't tell everything now, but promises that she won't fool him. They both have the same goal of revivaling that moderator and it would be easier if they worked together for that. Arya adds that he can't do everything alone. She also doesn't have the strength to act alone because she's still suffering from the moderator's penalty. Not even her system works. The protagonist is silent. Arya takes the opportunity to explain how it works for someone to become a moderator. First, she needs to form her own content. This means that the player must personally go through the entire experience of the game. Mia enters the conversation and says that she does not feel comfortable having someone like Aiden in charge. She prefers Arya as a moderator. The blue-haired girl makes the negative sign with her head and Mia apologizes for speaking that way. Arya tries to convince her that it's okay to have the protagonist as a moderator. At that moment, a villager enters the room and tells Aiden that the food won't be enough for the 50 new residents. The nurse didn't expect those men to be so hungry. The protagonist decides to use the integrated space to get more food. Mia looks carefully at Aiden to remove several bags from inside the portal. At the same moment she remembers the problem she had to solve a few days ago about the missing items of the players. Meanwhile, Aiden warns the residents that if you need something just ask because it's all free. Mia attacks the protagonist while asking what he is saying that it is for free. She calls him a thief and orders him to return everything. At the end of the night, the residents settle in some improvised huts. The protagonist complains about the cuts made on his face by the operator's claws. Arya pours a healing potion on him while saying that Mia is just a fox who works hard to help the players. Aiden replies that he has nothing to do with that girl's tantrums. Also, she left without apologizing. Arya asks Aiden not to be angry with Mia because she is only here to help him. In fact, all this time he didn't contact him was because he asked Mia for a favor. It turns out that the protagonist caught the attention of the operators, and that's why she thought of a way to divert his attention, so Mia helped her do it. Aiden is curious and asks what she did. Arya says it's a secret. What she can say now is that in this world there is another being that threatens the system. The protagonist quickly thinks about the last attack he received and asks if this other existence refers to the virus. The girl widens her eyes surprised and asks if he knows the virus. Aiden confirms and says that he fought with them before arriving in the village. Arya despairs and starts to check if his body has any blemishes. The protagonist asks why she is doing this. The girl is relieved realizing that he has not been infected, but this also raises extra concern because she realizes that now the viruses have discovered the protagonist. Arya ignores all of Aiden's requests to control herself and mentally says that she has to find a solution. At that moment the protagonist holds her by the arms and yells for her to calm down. Arya calls him an idiot and warns him that he should run away the next time he sees a virus. Aiden has no idea of the danger he was in. Arya says that viruses are even more dangerous than the moderator and system operators. This means that him being alive is a miracle. Aiden finally understands the reason for his despair and agrees that he might not have come back alive, but now it's okay because he managed to delete the virus. Arya asks what he just said. The protagonist says that he had some help but managed to delete the virus. The girl knows that doing this is practically impossible and understands that having Aiden as a moderator makes more sense than her. The protagonist decides to ask a question and asks if the NPCs are deleted because of the virus. Arya replies that basically that's it. If the virus is not deleted quickly, the whole system will collapse. Curing someone with a virus would take too long, and the only option to solve the problem quickly is to delete them. The protagonist says he understands, but even so he can't forgive that administrator. Many innocent people were erased for the simple fact of being in that village. Aiden understands that other people will also go through the same if the moderator remains in charge and uses the same system. The only alternative to change this is to have a new moderator, and he says that he is ready for the position. Arya can't believe his eyes and says that she is very happy with her choice. Now she will explain what happens behind the scenes. A moderator has to choose at least one operator. The system sends a lot of information, and it will be difficult for a single person to follow what is happening. At that moment Arya holds Aiden by the face while asking him to choose her to be his operator. Meanwhile, an emergency meeting takes place in the operator's control room. Lloyd says that he has a lot of work to do beyond correcting bugs, then asks if Mia has anything more important to talk about since she called an emergency meeting. The operator is silent. The operator puts his feet on the table and says he knew it was nothing. Mia says he is not here to play and threatens to rip his foot off, puts his feet on the floor quickly. The operator asks everyone to pay attention because she located Worm. Selena and Xenon feel a headache just remembering this damn virus. Normally common viruses already give work to operators, but Worm is a special virus that causes the most damage to the system by constantly cloning itself. Mia explains that she found it inside a bad sector, and now that they know it they can track it. She has already sent a report to the administrator and is sure that now they will be able to delete that thing. At that moment the operators feel a huge power press their bodies down. A light turns on and a person appears. All that power belongs to the administrator. The Guardian Prokian accompanies the superior. Meanwhile the operators comment that they are surprised because they have never seen the administrator appear in a situation like this. Mia is also surprised and wonders if he's here because of the report. The scene changes to the protagonist. He has not yet responded to Arya's request. The system screen appears asking if he wants to indicate her as an operator. Aiden knows that it is a very important step for an administrator. Arya has helped him at all times so far, in addition to having a lot of knowledge about the system and melee combat. Thinking about it, the protagonist comes to the conclusion that there is no one better than her to play this role. He presses the button confirming his choice. At the same moment a light surrounds Arya and says that she is now an operator. The girl starts to tremble and the protagonist asks if everything is okay. Suddenly she jumps into his arms and thanks him. Aiden says he already understands and pushes the girl away. He doesn't understand how she can be so strong and takes the opportunity to check her status. The system asks if he wants to use the administrator status to do this. From the beginning the protagonist was curious to know Arya's level. At that moment he clicks on access the girl's status and the system says that an error occurred. Her access was denied by another administrator. Aiden realizes that he does not have enough power even though he is above her. He wonders what crime Arya committed to get to this point. The next day arrives. The villagers are focused on renovating the village. Jake tells the protagonist that he will have to leave the village with Crab to get more materials. Aiden asks if that wasn't enough. Jake replies that it wasn't because the number of residents has suddenly increased. Farming and hunting will be very difficult, but there is a village nearby that has been abandoned. He intends to see if there is anything useful there. The magician Ciri was also willing to go to help if something goes wrong. The protagonist replies that it is okay and thinks about taking something from the integrated space to help them. In the same second the scene of the operator Mia screaming flashes in his mind. The protagonist is annoyed for hesitating to hinder her work. Suddenly Arya appears and asks if he is planning to go to some dungeon. Aiden replies that it is actually Jake and Ciri. The girl gives a forced laugh and says that she is sure that the protagonist wants to go too. A few minutes later, Aiden looks at the huge door of the dungeon. It's the second time he's seen something like this so closely, but he's confident that with the experience now there won't be a problem. So the protagonist walks towards the door. Suddenly Arya yells to wait. She asks if Aiden knows at least what types of monsters can appear or what items to take. The girl clarifies that the monsters in this dungeon are different from the wild animals that appear near the villages. The Guardian is also more powerful and can even create traps. In addition, Aiden will not be able to use his administrator skills inside. She just wants to prepare the protagonist because anyway he will have to go in and clear all the dungeons to create their content. Jake and Ciri will also need experience. Everyone can come in and improve their own strength now that they are no longer NPCs. A little later the protagonist and his team go through problems. He yells that it's better to retreat and manages to escape from the monsters. Crab falls to the ground exhausted. Aiden understands why Arya said that he shouldn't underestimate the dungeon. If it weren't for his advice the group would have already been hit in the first ambushes. Many monsters in this place have immunity to magic, making everything more difficult. At that moment Arya appears and asks how they are. The protagonist looks scared at the monsters that appear behind the girl, but Arya punches and finishes them all. The three look without understanding where Arya gets so much strength from. Meanwhile she celebrates the increase in their level. Jake was an NPC and therefore never exceeded the level determined by the system. He comments that now that he has made progress he feels his body exuding power. This also explains why players are so happy when they level up. Arya says that they should thank Aiden for this. She praises him and the protagonist is embarrassed. After eliminating the monsters along the way, the group arrives at the door of the dungeon guardian. Ciri says she feels an absurd power coming from within and is not sure if she will be able to deal with it. Arya makes a sleepy face and asks if they won't go in. Aiden replies that he thought he wouldn't even get here alive. Jake asks what will happen if they are fatally hit. He never thought about it before because it was an NPC. But now he is afraid of being permanently deleted. Arya replies that this will not happen because the system protection is activated. This red light that surrounds the body is a sign that you are being protected. It plays the role of blocking external attacks. This means that if you lose any fight, their bodies are taken to the resurrection village. The boys look at their own bodies trying to see the red light that protects them. Arya says that only the operator can see this protection, then suggests that they hurry up and defeat the Guardian to level up. Meanwhile in the village Urzj, the residents continue with the repair work. Suddenly they are surprised by an explosion. The protagonist and his group seem to have been expelled from the sky. No one understands what happened. Aiden is relieved that everyone is alive. Jake says that he has never seen a monster as demonic as that. The protagonist says that everything was so fast that he did not understand what happened. They entered the dungeon boss room and found a guardian. Then they were hit by sharp ice and returned to the village. Arya lands on the ground behind him and says that this is called a devastating attack. It is an ability that some bosses have. Aiden asks how she expected him to win that. The girl replies that she has said before that there is a strategy to defeat each boss. He'll know when he's fighting. The protagonist and the group return to the dungeon, now with more experience. He holds a shield while the boss prepares that attack of sharp ices. Aiden yells for his allies to block the attack. Ciri's magic and Jake's bow don't even tickle the monster. Aiden thinks of a solution before everything goes wrong again. At that moment he notices 4 immobile crystals around the guardian. The protagonist tries his luck and destroys the crystals with his sword. The boss stops the attack when this happens. Aiden screams to attack now. This time the group cleared the dungeon and received congratulations from the system. The protagonist rose to level 60 and celebrated the victory with his allies. The reward chest appears. Jake and Siri's eyes light up when they see that chest for the first time. The girl takes the crystal and says that the village will not have problems with money for long. Aiden is happy to help them without having to use the integrated space. Arya claps her hands and says that they did very well, then asks Jake and Siri to take the reward to the village while she has a private conversation with Aiden. The protagonist is curious and Arya changes her expression, saying that there is something important that he needs to do. Aiden walks through a corridor accompanied by Arya and has a familiar feeling. It looks like the same dungeon he entered last time. He fears meeting that guardian again. At that moment Arya opens the door and says that the reason for his absence was because of this. The protagonist looks scared at the monster. Arya says that this is one of the guards that are placed in most dungeons to erase the bugs that enter there. He also prevents monsters from leaving the dungeons. The protagonist remembers that in the first dungeon he came across one of these guards. This memory was terrifying to this day. Arya reassures him. She only brought him here because he is now an administrator, and today he must make this guardian his using his administrator permissions. They will certainly start with a single guardian so as not to attract too much attention. Arya adds that he can do the same way he did with the other NPCs. Aiden approaches the guardian and touches his chest. A light turns on, and the system window notifies that the dungeon administrator has been changed. The boss kneels down and accepts the protagonist as the new master. Arya is happy and says that this area is totally under her control. For now they will start little by little with the guardians. The protagonist soon says that he needs to recruit more operators to trust places like this. Arya feels that she is losing control and asks if Aiden is not satisfied with her. It is visible that she only needs one person to manage this area. Arya composes herself and says that she understands that he does not trust her because of her secrets, so he agrees if he wants another operator. The protagonist is confused and says that Arya got it wrong. He needs someone else to manage this place because he wants to take her with him. Aiden says that he needs Arya to find some answers and increase his administrator permissions. He doesn't care about his secrets as long as she follows and obeys what is said. Arya laughs and says she's ready. The protagonist returns to the village and chooses his operators. Siri and Jake are surprised by the invitation. Aiden asks if they don't want it and Jake replies that he doesn't think he's worthy of such an important job. The protagonist explains that his choice wasn't random. Since he returned he realized that the residents trust Siri and Jake a lot. That's why he thought they were the best suited for the role. Jake is about to speak when Arya yells at him to accept right away. She says it's not a difficult task and makes herself available to teach. Siri and Jake finally accept the invitation. Aiden thanks him. The scene changes to the bad sector where the worm is. The other viruses gather to listen to it. The worm says that they must already know why they were called. The administrator started to act personally with the other operators and the clones started to be deleted. That's why the new plan is to keep quiet and not go around drawing attention, at least until things calm down. Worm takes a deep breath and asks if anyone has seen Trojan. Viruses respond negatively. Worm gets annoyed that this guy disappeared without a trace. He turns his attention to something he wanted to show viruses. A hologram of the protagonist appears in his hands. The next day arrives. Aiden is leaving and leaves the operators in charge of the village. Siri says that there is no need to worry and that he can contact her if something happens. She will use magic to get to him as quickly as possible. The protagonist notices the tired faces of the operators and asks Arya what she did yesterday. The girl replies that she had to go hard. But it's okay because she's sure they won't forget the instructions. Now they're prepared to take care of the village. Arya adds that she also managed to keep the village out of the public eye, so the system operators will have a hard time locating. Aiden praises the girl's work and says that's exactly what he wanted. The protagonist feels that he can now leave the village without worrying. At that moment the system appears informing him that the achievement tutorial has been completed. He has completed the basic skills of the administrator. The protagonist has sure that now he will start his real plan. He gets excited and leaves the village with Arya. After a few turns the protagonist asks where they are going. Arya says she knew he was going to ask and that's why she created a beginner's guide. At that moment the conversation is interrupted. The protagonist receives a call from Kevin. Arya asks angrily when he met a player who is not her. Aiden accepts the message while asking why the girl had an angry outburst all of a sudden. Kevin greets the protagonist and asks him if he remembers the last conversation they had. This time his group wants to help new recruits and he thought of inviting Aiden to join them. The protagonist thinks about the invitation and thinks it's a good opportunity to be able to mingle with other players. He then agrees to go and Kevin sends the location. Arya angrily asks why Aiden agreed to help another player when she is here. She asks him to ignore this guy named Kevin, but the protagonist rejects her request. The scene changes to the city of Duntown. Aiden arrives at the scheduled location and enters the bar. Many players gather to drink and make friends. Kevin quickly waves to Aiden and says he thought the boy wouldn't come. He thanks him for his presence. Kevin finally notices that the protagonist is accompanied and looks at Arya. He is delighted with the girl's beauty and calls Aiden for a private conversation. Kevin asks if they have something and the protagonist replies that they are just friends. Meanwhile, Arya tries to improve her mood because she knows that Kevin must have helped Aiden during the inspection. For some reason the girl feels that she loses control whenever she has to share the protagonist's attention, but now his goal is to find out if this player has good intentions. Kevin approaches her embarrassed and asks if he can add her as a friend. Arya turns her face and he understands that she has no interest. So he decides to change the subject and introduces the protagonist to his friends. Aiden greets the newbies. Kevin's intention is to help them clear a dungeon. The guy says he doesn't have to worry because he'll help if something goes wrong. The scene changes to the troll dungeon. Kevin says that now just wait for the boss. He's sure that the newbies will level up faster than they expect. Arya and Aiden sit on a rock while the group talks. Suddenly someone shouts that another team is coming, probably to fight the boss too. The leader of the rival team says that they should leave the hunting ground now. The girl from Kevin's team replies that they got there first. The guy comes close to her face and calls her a low-level brat. The man starts humiliating all the players who are there. Kevin grabs him by the collar and asks if he is not ashamed to do that. The leader says that they can have a PvP if they want. He also reminds them that Kevin is from the Griffin Guild and will have problems if his karma increases. The other players in the enemy group approach Kevin's group and try to start a duel. A guy with white hair touches the protagonist's shoulder and tells him to get out of the way. Aiden is not in a good mood and punches the player in the face. The guy is thrown at the stone wall. Everyone looks scared, while the protagonist wipes his shoulder and says that he shouldn't have touched his clothes. The leader orders his players to take care of this brats. The men obey and advance towards the protagonist. Aiden passes the first one over his shoulder and knocks it to the ground, then hits the second one in the stomach and face. Both are unconscious on the ground. The leader lifts the sleeve of his shirt and says he will solve it. Aiden notices the Hydra Guild crest on the enemy's arm and remembers seeing that symbol in the list of the top 5 guilds. At that moment Kevin puts the sword in the enemy's path and tells him not to take any more steps. The leader laughs and asks if he should consider this as a decision of the Griffin Guild. The protagonist asks Kevin to stay out of it. He doesn't want to bring problems to his friend and also thinks he can deal with this guy alone. The leader says it's ridiculous and directs his fist at Aiden's face. The protagonist narrowly dodges and the wall that receives the impact is destroyed. The leader continues the sequence of punches. Aiden dodges and finds the opportunity to counterattack. He appears close to his face in seconds. The leader didn't expect such a great counterattack speed. The next moment the protagonist increases the strength of his fist by 2x and hits the opponent. No player would resist that punch. The system warns that the leader's HP has been reset and he will return to the resurrection village. The player disappears and his allies fear they are next. The protagonist faces the rest of the group and they flee. Kevin remembers that the last time he saw the boy he was still a beginner. He is surprised by Aiden's rapid evolution. The newbies do not hide the joy of having the protagonist on the same team. Kevin apologizes for not interfering earlier and explains that if he does so it could be problematic for his guild. He asks if the protagonist doesn't care about increasing his karma points. Aiden replies that he's okay with that. At the moment Aiden has 17 karma points. The scene changes to the resurrection village. The leader hits the wall frustrated. He says that the next leader of the Hydra Guild should not lose to a loser, then promises that he will repay what happened today. The man leaves with his team, and Arya watches him from above. Meanwhile, the protagonist focuses on finishing off the dungeon boss. The giant is defeated with the sword cut, and the team celebrates. Aiden is happy to use his experience to help these newbies. At that moment Kevin says that it is the first time he has seen a young player so strong and takes the moment to make an invitation to his guild. The guy is sure that that player of the Hydra Guild will surely try the rematch one day. He tries to convince the protagonist to join his guild to be protected. The system displays the invitation to the Griffin clan. Aiden thinks that his choice would be easier if Arya had not disappeared out of nowhere. The scene changes to the branch of the Hydra Guild. The leader is scolded by the captain, who says that he is the imbecile for losing. The man says that he is no longer sure if he should leave him in charge after that. The captain will not let his guild have this bad reputation and says that he will send some men to crush the guy who messed with the player. The leader thanks him and is happy, thinking that this time he will finish the protagonist. Suddenly a scream is heard and someone breaks into the office. Arya knocks the guard to the ground. The leader soon asks who she is. The soldiers try to catch their breath and are reprimanded by the commander, who asks how they can't stop a single intruder. He then orders the other guards to finish off this girl. The leader believes that there is no way she can be good enough to beat the whole gang. The commander of the order to keep her alive because they need to know which guild sent her. Arya blows up the office wall in a matter of seconds with her fist. The men are easily defeated. The leader doesn't believe his eyes because all the players here were above level 100. The commander trembles with rage and takes a sword from the inventory. He goes up to Arya and tries to hit there. Meanwhile, upstairs a player tries to read his book in peace, but the whole floor starts shaking. He asks what's going on and is told that there's an intruder in the building. The man says he was very unlucky because this happened right on the day he decided to visit the guild. The guy quickly returns the book to the shelf and asks how many intruders there are. The girl informs him that it's only one. The player is simply incredulous. He walks towards the commander's office while wondering if all this noise is for a single player. The guy walks through the door and the sight he sees is not what he expected. Arya defeated all the soldiers and now holds the commander by the collar. The guy asks how they can tarnish the name of the guild like this, losing to one person. Suddenly he throws several spheres of fire and the players duck so as not to be hit. The leader recognizes that man as Avand, the oldest member of the Hydra Guild. The leader is a little relieved to see Avand because he is sure he can handle this invader. At that moment Arya cleans the dust that fell on her clothes after knocking down the wall. Avand realizes that she didn't show any emotion after seeing him. In addition, he has a feeling that this player is different from all the others, so Avand decides to use one of his biggest attacks and yells at the players to leave the building if they don't want to appear in the Resurrection Village. The men rush to leave the office. Avand directs a fireball at Arya. She avoids the attack just by taking a step to the side. The guy doesn't understand how she can be well. With no other alternative, he creates some portals on the ground and sends fire. Arya stands motionless inside the circle. The power is enough to lift all the rocks and create large craters on the ground. The thick dust goes away and Avand realizes that the girl is still intact in the same place as always. Arya gets frustrated and says that despite being a failure, he seems to be the strongest among the others. It is still disappointing. The girl starts to pinch his face while saying that the reason he brought her here is because her guild has crossed the line. Then he says to remember her face well, because she will come and annihilate all the members if the guild makes a mistake once again. Avand can't get rid of the girl's hands. He doesn't understand how he could have lost so easily and comes to the conclusion that she is not an ordinary player. She is a ranker. At that moment Arya pushes the player's head against the ground. She keeps pressing while the guy coughs up red liquid. A few minutes later Avand manages to get out of the rubble that fell on his body. His level dropped after the attack he suffered from Arya. The guy can't handle this defeat and promises that he will repay the humiliation. Meanwhile, in the city of Duntown, Kevin asks if the protagonist really doesn't want to join the guild. Aiden says he can protect himself and his friend doesn't have to worry. Kevin asks him to contact him if something happens and then says goodbye, always warning the protagonist to stay away from the Hydra Guild. Aiden says goodbye and waves his hand. Suddenly Arya appears behind him and asks if it's over. The protagonist asks where she's been all this time, and the girl questions if it's not obvious she took care of those guys who made a ruckus. The protagonist asks if Arya went to the guild, and she replies that she went to the nearest branch. At that moment some players talk out loud that the Hydra Guild was destroyed. It seems that a rancor invaded and ended everything. Probably this will change the reputation of the guild. Arya says that now he can rest because he won't have any problems. The protagonist takes a deep breath and says that the girl really doesn't change. He thinks that Arya did it so that he had time to fulfill his administrative duties without anyone interfering. Suddenly, Aiden takes something from integrated space and tells the girl that he wanted to give it for a while, but as it took him to complete some missions alone, he couldn't finish it before. The protagonist gives the girl a necklace that allows only the two of them to communicate. You can also know each other's location. He did it thinking about never losing contact even when she disappeared out of nowhere. Aiden turns his face embarrassed after delivering the gift. Arya can't hide how happy she is. She hugs the necklace thanking her for the gift, and says she will take care of it with all affection. The scene changes to the operator's meeting room. They complain that it was exhausting as always. Zenon realizes that Mia is sad and calls her to talk. The girl asks if it's too important why she wants to leave. The operator says he wants to talk about the worm virus. Zenon has fought that thing before and is pretty sure that no operator can beat this virus. Mia says that if the conversation is about this she will leave. Zenon tells her to wait and asks why the girl didn't report about the virus as soon as she found it. The priority is always to inform the administrator. If she had done that maybe everything would have been different. Zenon is not at all satisfied with the way Mia acted. The operator tries to justify it by saying that she wasn't sure if it was a worm. Zenon doesn't believe it and asks if she's in contact with someone else. This angers Mia and she questions if he is trying to do a test. The girl is so furious that flames appear around her body. Zenon replies that he is just asking a question. Everyone knows that no matter the operator's position, no one can refuse to answer his question. Zenon adds that this is all for the sake of the system. Mia feels pressured, while the operator waits for a convincing answer so as not to continue suspecting her. He just hopes that she is not following in the same footsteps as the traitor Arya. Mia widens her eyes in anger when she hears this and in the next moment tries to attack him with a fireball. Zenon dodges and draws his sword. The operator finds the perfect opening to hit him and launches fire. In the same second a protective wall blocks his attack. She looks to the side and realizes that it was the Guardian Procyon. The disappointment appears on the woman's face. The two operators try to get out of the wall created by the Guardian, but she says that it is forbidden to fight inside, so tell them to leave the building immediately. Outside, Zenon asks Mia to think carefully about her attitudes. He doesn't want to become her enemy. Mia has a flashback to the past when she was a child and only one person wanted to help her. This blue-haired person was someone she didn't want to disappoint. It's thinking about this that Mia decides to forget what happened today. They walk away while the other operators watch. Dyke comments that he has never seen Mia furiosa at this level. The operator Isabel thinks there is something wrong with Mia because Zenon never creates problems for no reason. Dyke replies that it is better to wait to be sure. The scene changes to the protagonist, and he tells him about the invitation to Arya. The girl asks if he refused and Aiden replies yes, but hopes that another opportunity like this will appear in the future. Arya says that it's not bad to be in a guild, and the protagonist is surprised. He thought she hated this idea. Arya replies that this also serves as content, and that guy named Kevin is a decent person, so he doesn't see a problem if the protagonist changes his mind. Aiden says that he is actually thinking of creating his own guild. Sometime later, Ciri answers the protagonist's call and says that everything is fine in the village. The building is almost ready. Aiden replies that this is very good and says that if they need more material just get in touch. Ciri thanks them. The residents hear the protagonist's voice and Ciri starts to push them, saying that they need to finish the job before Aiden returns. The protagonist checks the progress of the new building and asks if he only needs it. Arya says yes and explains that the hall is a minimum condition that must be met for the creation of a guild. Now he just needs to wait until everything is complete. Aiden is happy and asks what they are going to do now. The girl replies that she already has something in mind. The two arrive at the challenge tower and the protagonist is not happy with the fate. Arya says that this is one of the most used content by players. Just defeat the monster on each floor and you can proceed to the next. Some players come to receive items while others just want to break records. She says that the protagonist doesn't need to focus on that, as it is the first time it is important that he gets experience. Aiden replies that he will take it seriously. Arya says that this is good, and asks to see how his skills are. Normally players do not need high levels to participate in the challenge tower, but she just wants to make sure that he will be well. The protagonist agrees and shows the skill panel. The girl widens her eyes in surprise. All of Aiden's skills are at max level. She asks how he managed to do this and the protagonist seems even more surprised. He replies that his skills have been like this since the beginning. Aiden thought it was like this for all players. He never saw any other list of skills and thought it was normal that they were all maxed out. Arya now understands why he felt he was strong right when he found him. Even with his low level, the protagonist stood out from the other beginners. This means that she was right and it can be said that the boy is very special. Arya is happy because now it is only a matter of time for the protagonist to become the administrator. She pulls the protagonist by the arm and says that it is time to go. Aiden asks the girl to walk slowly. On the first floor, the robot identifies the players. Suddenly his eyes fall on the protagonist, and he asks if that is the administrator. Aiden enters the first floor and decides to destroy all the monsters without Arya's help. His attacks are precise and perfect. The demons are knocked down one by one. The system notifies him that he is leveling up. Meanwhile, the girl stands in the corner watching how Aiden does. She says that now it makes sense that Aiden has learned so quickly to use his combat skills. At that moment, the protagonist finishes the last monster and says that it was not as difficult as he thought. Arya advises not to let your guard down because with each floor the monsters get stronger and the difficulty increases. Aiden replies that he understands and asks where the end of the tower is. The girl says that it is on the 50th floor. The protagonist has already reached the halfway point. On the next floor, he realizes that Arya was right, the difficulty increased. Rapidly as he climbed each floor of the tower, the monsters were incomparably strong, but the protagonist managed to overcome them and finally reach the 49th floor. The boss swings the axe at him. Aiden realizes that he was narrowly saved. The thick dust dissipates and the boy looks scaredly at that giant guardian. The protagonist came across a strong and agile boss. In this case, he decides to use the combination of two skills to win the fight and reach floor 50. Aiden combines magic and physical strengthening. It's his first time using both skills at the same time, but he's confident he's going to take that guy down. At that moment, the protagonist jumps to land a precise blow. The attack works and the boss is hit in the head with all his strength. He falls to the ground defeated, and the system warns that floor 49 has been cleared. Aiden is pleased and says that now only floor 50 is left. He goes up the stairs and enters the room. The final boss comes out of the portal. The protagonist looks carefully at his last objective in that tower. At that moment, the final guardian raises the staff and sticks it in the earth, creating a curse barrier below the protagonist's feet. The system notifies that Aiden has received great damage and now his skills will be reduced by 50%. He knows that the tower's strategy is to create a debuff so big that players will have problems. They just didn't count on the protagonist having a resistance skill. At that moment, the debuff is removed and all his skills return to 100%. Aiden holds the sword strategically while the boss runs towards him. The guardian raises several spikes along the way and the protagonist cuts them all without problems. The attack intensifies and he also manages to block the rocks that the boss sends to him. Now Aiden finds the opening he needs and makes a quick cut with the sword. The guardian is cut in half and his body begins to disappear. The system congratulates the protagonist for clearing floor 50. Aiden thinks the contents were better than he expected. A blue portal begins to form as the boy asks where is the exit. He considers enter the portal. At that moment, Arya appears and congratulates. She says that it is practically impossible to clean the tower the first time she participates. Aiden says that the girl arrived at a good time and asks what that portal is. Arya is silent, looking in the same direction as him. The protagonist asks where it leads, but Arya can't see the portal he's talking about. Aiden is surprised and touches his hand on the gate to see what happens, since he is the only one who can see him. Suddenly the protagonist begins to be sucked into the portal and Arya despairs trying to stop it, but she can't and Aiden is dragged. He reappears floating in a strange place and the first thing he thinks is that this has to do with the administrator. The protagonist tries to locate himself and sees several projections where the other players are fighting with the monsters on each floor. Aiden lands on the ground wondering what this place is. A blue light surrounds his body and at the same moment the protagonist feels that it is the same light as Sirius. The light leads to a path with a door called Beta 0.5. He comes to the door and a notification pops up saying that it is an event quest called The Forgotten. The reward of the quest is the authority of the level 1 administrator and command. The protagonist thinks about what he should do. Suddenly a voice asks if he is there. Aiden realizes that it is Arya. The girl contacted him wearing the necklace. The protagonist asks if she can find out his location. The girl replies yes, but she has a problem. She doesn't know how to get to the location because it's under the ground. What she's thinking of doing is breaking everything and finding him. She just asks him to be quiet until she arrives. The protagonist replies that she doesn't have to worry. Arya starts to get nervous and asks what he is going to do. Aiden replies that he is going to do a mission now and they will meet when it is over. He asks her not to worry because he can leave this space anytime he wants using the cloud. Arya agrees and asks to be careful. After that the protagonist pushes the door and enters the room. He is scared to see the number of monsters lined up. Aiden walks among those beasts and realizes that there is not a single movement. Suddenly a voice says that they do not move because they have not been updated. The protagonist goes on alert and starts screaming, asking who is there. that robot we saw at the beginning appears. He is the high guard of the system, the entity is unknown. At that moment the guard says that no one should enter but the administrator, but for some reason he feels a similar power of the administrator's strength coming from the protagonist. Aiden looks suspiciously as the monsters start to move. The high guard says that he is sure he is not the administrator and therefore should be deleted like any other intruder. At that moment Aiden is attacked. He is more agile and escapes from the hands of enemies, then puts the sword in front of his chest and hits everyone who comes towards him. Halfway through he exchanges the sword for the hammer because I think it will be easier to handle. After that the protagonist continues his attack on a high scale. The bodies begin to fly and Aiden finishes using the flaming sword. At that moment the upper guard remembers when this place was given to him. A blue-haired man said he was sure that the guard could take care of the tower in his place. The job of upgrading was in his hands now. The guard was very happy to receive that work from someone he admired so much, but at that moment he comes across a red-haired boy destroying the entire room. The guard tells himself that his mission is to protect the place until the update happens. He advances towards the threat and shoots sharp spikes at the protagonist. Aiden dodges without problems and continues attacking the monsters. Suddenly a thick smoke rises and the guard does not find the protagonist, but it doesn't matter because he throws his thorns in all directions. Aiden appears behind the guard and creates a protective barrier. The ground below his feet breaks and a monster appears. The protagonist jumps just in time away from the enemy's mouth and passes the sword on his neck. He lands on the ground while defeating yet another beast. The boy catches his breath after swinging that sword so many times in a row. The guard thinks of a solution to use his power without him being blocked by Aiden's weapon. He then makes it difficult for the boy to duel. The protagonist increases the command skill by 3x and jumps over the containers. He appears in front of the guard in a matter of seconds and tries to pierce the protective barrier with the sword. The guard's defense begins to crack. He cannot hold on for long and is hit. The protagonist pierces the enemy with his sword and falls to the ground. Shattered, that guard was made to take care of the system. He always had this as his greatest mission and did everything to protect the tower. After remembering this his consciousness goes out and several red windows appear, informing that the update will begin. Some time later the guard begins to open his eyes and Arya calls the protagonist. The girl says that she didn't think that a guard of the system could have consciousness. Aiden says that it is the first time he has seen it too. The guard is now in his human form. The scene changes to the past, when the guard was defeated by the protagonist and a red core came out of his body. Aiden held the sphere in his hand, trying to understand what it was. Arya contacted him and asked if he was okay. The protagonist said yes and asked to meet him at the usual bar. In a few minutes the two sat down to talk. Arya says that this sphere is the core of a high-ranking guard. The protagonist is surprised because he thought that there was only a dungeon guard. The girl replies that a high-ranking guard cannot be compared to a normal guard. Depending on the entity, they can be even stronger than an operator. The protagonist asks how something so powerful was left unattended. Arya says that it is likely that he was unable to upgrade. Usually many guards are abandoned. Many other things are also being forgotten. Arya believes that this problem will only be solved when the administrator changes. The protagonist now understands why that mission was called the Forgotten. He holds the core and says that maybe he can help by updating everything. Aiden activates the edit command. He remembers that the guard's previous body was destroyed, so he will have to create another one, but he doesn't know how to do it. Suddenly the system flashes some information. The new entity has been detected. Suddenly the core starts to transform. Aiden waits anxiously for the body that is being created. The system asks him to choose a name. He thinks carefully and chooses the name Theodore. The scene returns to the present moment. The guard looks impressed at his human hands. The protagonist asks how he feels now that he has been updated. Theodore asks if he was the one who did it and Aiden confirms. The guard kneels down and thanks him for making his wish come true. From now on his mission will be to follow him. The protagonist is called an administrator by the high-ranking guard, who promises to stay by your side until the end. The scene changes to a battle inside the bad sector. The administrator seems to have found the cache of the viruses. The clones begin to be deleted quickly. One of the viruses hides and says that this time the administrator seems really willing to go all the way. At that moment the administrator appears behind him and deletes him. The deletion is permanent. The administrator feels that the most powerful virus is hidden underground. He was right. At that moment a fierce battle between a high-level virus and the administrator begins. The walls of the bad sector are destroyed. The virus believes that this time it will be able to wipe out the administrator. After its attack, an explosion happens. The virus is sure that the administrator did not resist its lightning, but when the smoke dissipates, another person appears. The goddess Procyon created a defense barrier to protect the administrator. The virus asks how an insect dares to stop its attack. The goddess says she will take care of it and activates her exclusive judgment. The administrator holds the girl by the shoulder and says that he can do it. He walks up to the virus while saying that he has been so busy finding Procyon in the last few days that he has forgotten about these useless ones. The administrator removes his mask and says that he is tired of this mess. The command of blocking is activated and the virus is sucked to another place. He asks where he is, and if the man created this space for him not to escape. The administrator is silent and begins to delete the enemy. The virus realizes the bad situation he is in and creates several clones to escape. The administrator prepares another attack and says that this effort is very annoying. The clones are hit and begin to disappear. The administrator leaves the space and holds in his hand the sphere with that virus, then clicks on delete permanently. At that moment, Worm feels a pain invade his chest. He realizes that one of his most powerful clones has been deleted. In fact, almost all of his clones have been deleted. Worm says that it will be a little difficult to get them back this time, but this increases the virus's determination to destroy that administrator. At that moment, Procyon calls the administrator by the name of Aster and asks if he is okay. The man leaves her talking to herself and enters the portal. He returns to the office and sits in the chair completely exhausted. Suddenly the system notifies a message from Xenon. The administrator opens the message expecting to receive the report, but finds some photos of Mia. Xenon says that the girl's behavior has been suspicious lately and he thinks she met with Arya. In a way, the administrator already expected this to happen. Mia always followed Arya more than him. Deep down, Aster wonders if at some point Arya thought about returning. The administrator continues to read Xenon's message until he finds a photo of the protagonist. He is surprised because he remembers deleting Aiden. Aster does not understand how the boy is still alive and seems to have administrator powers. He begins to think that Aiden has become a virus. At that moment, Aster tries to see the status of the protagonist, but his access is denied. As if it couldn't get worse, the administrator can't access any information about Aiden. Aster looks scared, wondering how this is possible. Not accessing someone else's information means that you have the number lower than theirs. In that, the administrator realizes that the protagonist is superior to him. Aster feels lost. Suddenly he finds another familiar name on the list and asks if it's Trojan. Procyon enters the room and Aster tells her to act secretly, or the guy will run away again if he knows he's been found. The protagonist's image appears on the screen and the administrator tells Procyon to protect this boy. The scene changes to Aiden and Arya returning to the village. Theodore repeatedly says that he will do whatever the master wants. The protagonist replies that he already understands, then asks Arya why the guard says this several times. The girl replies that the guards live for the administrator. Probably Theodore wants to show service so as not to be neglected again. Aiden questions why there were monsters in those rooms. Arya says that it is because monsters are also part of the system. One of the functions of high-level guards is to place the beasts at the right time to fight the players, but those monsters he saw were also abandoned. Just like Theodore, the protagonist is surprised and comes to the conclusion that in the end the monsters are not a real threat. Arya says he's right. Monsters serve to make the player stronger. The player will never be permanently eliminated if he loses to a beast. What can really end them is being infected by a virus or deleted by the administrator. Aiden wonders why he never thought about it before. Monsters have never invaded a village because they are controlled by the system. They only do something if the administrator wants. Suddenly Arya runs and tells the protagonist to see how the village is. Aiden is surprised by the change of place. It seems that the residents have dedicated themselves. At that moment the children run to welcome him. Helen warns that Jake and Siri have just left for the dungeon. Some time later, Siri and Jake break into the room to talk to the protagonist. They apologize for the delay, but Aiden says that everything is fine. He is surprised to see the two of them with such a high level. Siri soon notices Theodore standing like a statue and asks who he is. The guard says that looking closely they look like operators. Theodore introduces himself and says that he is accompanying Aiden. Siri and Jake are surprised to see a high-level guardian in the village. After that, the protagonist stays in a room with the operators to have a private conversation. He asks how the village is and if anything happened while they were out of contact. Jake and Siri look at each other. Siri is direct and says that some players visited the village. The protagonist widens his eyes scared. The girl tries to reassure him by saying that the players did not cause any trouble. Jake says that they stayed for a day, exchanged items and left. Aiden is relieved that nothing bad happened. Arya remembers that she left the village hidden on the map. Even so, the players discovered its existence. It will be difficult if they come back more often on purpose because there is no way to restrict access to the village. The protagonist asks the operators to contact him or Arya if something like this happens again. Jake and Siri agree. Theodore joins the conversation and asks the master to give him a command too. Aiden replies that he has already thought of something, that's why he brought him to the village. The Guardian's eyes shine listening to this. The protagonist asks if he should test him and Arya questions what he wants to do. The scene shifts to the outside of the village. The villagers gather to see what Aiden is doing. He accesses the mission of the Forgotten that has been completed and receives a new command as a reward. The protagonist is happy because now he will be able to do what he planned. He looks at Arya and says that he is ready to be a true administrator. The first step is to be able to implement a content. At that moment, the protagonist enters the mission of the Forgotten again. He remembers the feeling he felt when he saw the backstage of each floor of the tower. After doing this, the protagonist activates the copy command. He copies the tower and decides to make some changes to the designer. The visuals are quickly improved. The system warns that the content has been created and now needs a name. The name chosen by Aiden was Tower of Judgment. All the residents look impressed at the large structure that came out of nowhere. The copy of the challenge tower came out better than the protagonist expected, but it also made him very tired. He calls Theodore and in seconds the guard appears behind him. The protagonist says that from now on Theodore will be in charge of this tower. In addition, he must also take care of the residents. The guard thanks him and says that he will not disappoint him. The protagonist feels a relief of mission accomplished. Suddenly his body weakens and he falls. But Arya holds him in time and says that he did a great job. Meanwhile, in the main village, a blonde player tries to convince the friend that he is not lying. He actually found a village that does not appear on the map and that has many treasures. The purple-haired friend does not believe it, so the player says that he can take him there. The purple-haired player remembers that he visited the Urzj village several times. It only stopped because the administrator blocked the entrance. The blonde player says that now they can go and starts pushing his friend. At that moment, another player listens to the conversation and is excited to get to know this village too. The masked player tries to stop him from going because he has a lot of accumulated work to do, but the player says that he can smell money from afar and cannot let this opportunity slip away. A few minutes later, the blonde player arrives with the two friends in the protagonist's village. The purple-haired one says that this place really doesn't appear on the map. The blonde says that they are the only ones here. This means that the players have not yet discovered the existence of the Urzj village. At that moment, the green-haired guy calls the attention of his friends and asks if that is a tower. The purple-haired player is surprised and says that it is similar to Tower of Challenge. The players wonder if it is new content and check if the system has posted any announcements about it, but there is nothing there. The guys they decide to take a closer look at the structures. The purple-haired guy finds this a bit suspicious. Even so, he decides to follow his friends. He finds a blacksmith shop and calls the players to take a look. Meanwhile, inside the shop, the villagers decide to take a break. They were happy to go back to work after being rescued by the protagonist. Aiden also taught them some sword forging skills and gave them all the materials they needed. Thanks to him, that the everyday tools of the villagers are more powerful than those of the players. At that moment, the blacksmiths receive some customers. The players are amazed by the quality of the weapons. The blacksmith realizes that they are the same players who appeared before. He welcomes them and asks the purple-haired man if he can help. The player wanted to buy some items, but realized that none had a price. So he asks if the weapons are for sale. The blacksmith replies that he doesn't need money. He is willing to hand over any item in exchange for a favor. The players are surprised. The blacksmith says that the village is extremely rich, but the food here is not good because it is difficult to find good ingredients, so he wants to make a trade with the players' food. The blonde asks if he is really saying that he can change any equipment in some ingredients. He quickly runs to the convenience store with his green-haired friend. The other player checks if he has any missions in that village, and the system says no. At that moment, the other two players find the village. They complain that there really was no sign on the map. The guy in red says that he didn't come to waste time. Suddenly he invades one of the houses. Nurse Sophia and the other resident get scared. Meanwhile, the players start to break everything in search of valuable items. The villager tries to stop the destruction of his house and is threatened. The player calls him a servant and throws the fist on his face. But in the same second, a Defensive barrier protects the resident. The player widens his eyes in surprise, and at that moment a voice asks what he is doing. Siri is so furious that she can assassinate that intruder in seconds. Meanwhile, the protagonist finally wakes up after losing consciousness creating the tower. He realizes that he has exhausted all energy using that command. Arya interrupts his thoughts by asking how he feels. Aiden questions if she has been with him all this time, and the girl says yes, because he is someone very important. The protagonist soon changes the subject and asks how long he was unconscious. The girl says that it was for a whole day. Aiden decides to check on the villagers. The villagers are happy to see him well. At that moment, Nurse Sophia comes to him desperate. She starts talking about that a player has entered the village and is causing a mess. The protagonist doesn't even wait for the girl to finish talking and runs to check the situation. He and Arya fly to the shed. Suddenly the door is broken and 2 players are thrown out of the shed. They say that it is not possible that there is such a strong NPC. Siri was ready to finish off these men, but when he notices the presence of the protagonist, the player recognizes the person in front of him immediately because Aiden worked as a blacksmith in the main village. The protagonist also recognizes this player because he was despised by him for many years. Aiden asks if he didn't learn anything after he lost all the money. The player takes a dagger from the inventory and says that he will destroy the protagonist. Suddenly he gets kicked in the face and falls to the ground. Jake asks how the player dares to talk like that to the master. The guy feels a lot of pressure coming from those people who should be NPCs. It seems that his perception was wrong, and he wonders what this place is. The protagonist remembers that the last encounter he had with this unpleasant player was when he wrongly upgraded all his swords. The player was left without any artifacts. Since then he has been trying to accumulate money to pay the debt. At that moment Aiden says that he will solve the misunderstanding he has between them, and this time he will improve correctly. He removes a hammer from the cover and aims towards the artifact of the unpleasant player. The guy yells not to do it, but it is too late. The system announces that the improvement has failed. The players are left with only the clothes on their backs and run away for fear of losing them too. Aiden looks at Siri and tells her to stop these guys from coming back. The girl replies that she will do it. The protagonist promises that he will not let them be humiliated by these trash players. Now they need to prepare themselves because hiding the place will be useless. Siri says that in a little while the operators will also find the village. It is necessary to think of a plan soon. Arya agrees with the girl and says that as the system of this place is different from other villages, there is no way to know what the administrator will do when he finds out. Aiden says that in this case, it is better to bring more players. Jake thinks it is better to hide, but the protagonist says that they will be found sooner or later. The best thing to do now is to create good content so that players stay in the village. If that happens, no one will be able to delete this place. Aiden expects Arya's support. He asks everyone to hold hands without fear. After that, the 4 are sent to an unknown space. Jake and Siri are scared, but the protagonist says that everything is fine and explains that this is the space of the system. He brought them here because he wanted to share some of his strength. A red light invades the chest of the operators. The system warns that the synchronization has been completed. The protagonist says that now they can use cloud storage. There are the items he collected from Arya. Now Jake and Siri will be able to manage and protect the village. The operators thank you for that. A few days pass. The urged village receives several players. The protagonist watches through the system screen. Arya says that it seems that the players are having fun. Aiden thinks that the tower still needs some improvements. In addition, he came across some problematic players and his karma has increased to 46. Anyway, now things are going well. Aiden thanks Theodore for his help. The guard replies that he is only doing his job. The protagonist changed some details of this tower. Now players have extra content, such as survival test, puzzle and recovery. Theodore says that the players seem happy with this content. Aiden is pleased and asks the guard to contact him if something happens. Despite the tower being good, the protagonist thinks that something is still missing to get the attention of more players. He quickly has an idea. At that moment, the players receive a message about a new event. The message says that from now on they will receive double experience points and reward. While inside the Tower of Judgment, players are impressed because they have never seen an event like this before. The system updates and says that the event will end in 2 hours. Everyone hurries to get to the village. The protagonist follows everything and is satisfied that the plan has worked. Arya is a little worried because she knows it will get the operator's attention. She thinks maybe she can calm things down if she calls Mia. The events spread quickly through the main cities. Players are surprised by the news that the Urged village has been reopened and has exclusive content. The blue-haired guy says that it is strange that there is nothing on the bulletin board. Even so, his group decides to go to the village. They are watched by a blonde girl. The scene changes to the main hall of the Hydra Guild, where a meeting of the elders takes place. One of the men comments that he has not heard any news coming from the branch that is in Duntown. A van lowers his head because he knows exactly what happened there. At that moment, a level 400 ranker catches his attention. This guy is the master of the Hydra Guild and his name is Douglas. He orders a van to tell what happened. The guy starts shaking. He says that the branch was invaded by a ranker and suddenly everything was destroyed. He shows Arya's photo. Douglas looks carefully and has a familiar feeling. He feels that he knows the blue-haired girl from somewhere. At that moment, a member of the Hydra Guild receives an emergency call. Douglas asks what happened and is informed that new content has been discovered. He thinks it's strange because he didn't receive any warning. The guy replies that he heard that it was a tower located in Urged village. It's a big event with rewards. Douglas asks if there are any guilds in the village right now. The member replies that so far no. Douglas decides to act immediately before the other 5 big guilds know about it. He shouts to the members that it is necessary to claim the village now. Douglas said that all elite players must be called immediately. The members obey the order and leave the room. At that moment, a virus rises behind Douglas and says that an update is always interesting. The guild master complains about him appearing suddenly. The virus called Regan says that he doesn't care about his feelings, then asks for the details about this update. Douglas replies that so far nothing has appeared on the bulletin board, but he heard that there is new content in the Urged village. The virus doesn't think that the administrator has the creativity to do something now. He can only think of a person who may be behind it. Regan remembers that Worm commented on a red-haired boy with administrator skills. Worm asks the virus to be quiet for a while, but Regan does not intend to obey his orders. He then demands that Douglas send it to capture his objective in the village. The commander refuses to do this because if the administrator finds out, it will be all over. The virus replies that there is no need to worry because the administrator is busy. The hackers created by it will do the job properly. The scene changes to the operator's control room. Dyke shouts, asking if she heard it right. Mia says yes. Today is her last day as an operator. Everyone at the table is surprised. Mia says that she has already made her decision. The only reason to become an operator was to help Arya because she was the only one who accepted her with open arms. So Mia is determined to stop being an operator to follow Arya. Dyke looks confused and asks who Arya is. Xenon replies that Dyke doesn't know them because they are members from different eras. The only ones who know Arya are him and Mia because they continue as operators to this day. Mia gets up from the table and says that she's said it all. Now he will return the noble weapon according to the rules. Xenon tells her to wait and asks if the girl thinks she will leave like this. Mia replies yes. Xenon says that by order of the administrator, he cannot let her go like this. He questions if Mia intends to go after Arya. The operator tries to remind her that Arya broke the taboo and got her hands on something she shouldn't, causing the administrator to be in danger. It was after this incident that the administrator changed completely. Xenon adds that he doesn't want to harm a longtime partner, so he asks Mia not to make any wrong choices. The girl laughs and says that he can try to stop it if he can. Mia leaves the room and Xenon flies after her. The operators approach the wall destroyed by the two. Lloyd says that's what happens when Procyon isn't here. Lloyd and Isabelle fly towards the two. Dyke asks if Selena is going too. She replies no because she thinks it will get in the way. Dyke replies that it's okay and flies towards the other operators. Selena is alone in the meeting room. Meanwhile, the atmosphere intensifies between Mia and Xenon. The ground is destroyed by the duel. Mia is ready to hit the operator with her fire spheres. The fire hits the ground and an explosion happens. Dyke looks at the fight in fear and thinks of a way to stop them, but he is sure he will not survive if he enters the middle of the duel. Isabelle suggests helping Xenon. Dyke asks why Xenon. Lloyd finds an opportunity and tries to stop Mia with the sword. The girl defends herself and asks why he is in her on the way. Lloyd tells her that she must follow the administrator's policy and reminds her that it is a sin to break the taboo. Meows him, pushes and yells at him to shut up, then hits him in the belly with the fiery fist. Lloyd is stopped by a stone wall and spits out a red liquid. The operator begins to say that none of them know why Arya acted that way. Arya only wanted the good of the administrator. At that moment Mia wishes good luck if they want prevent her from leaving. Lloyd tries to recover and feels a lot of pain. He didn't expect it to be like this with just one blow. He He looks ahead and sees her emanating a murderous aura. Lloyd doesn't know what to do to suppress her because the commands don't work on the operators. Isabelle tries to stop the girl from above, but Mia notices the movement and defends herself. She increases the fire to pressure the enemy and succeeds. Isabelle is pushed away and falls to the ground. Dyke is surprised to see that Mia is doing well on her own. He realizes that the girl is completely different from normal. Lloyd checks if Isabelle is okay, and says that he is not sure if they can beat Mia, even though they attack together. Isabelle laughs and says that she missed this feeling. Suddenly she advances towards Mia while Lloyd yells at her to wait. Isabelle tells the operator that she always wanted to fight the strongest. Mia asks if she is the strongest and Isabelle confirms, but Mia pushes her back and yells that the strongest is Arya. At that moment a blue light appears on her back. Lloyd tried to hit her by surprise, but the girl dodges the sequence of attacks easily. Isabelle takes advantage of the moment to catch her off guard, while Lloyd uses the ability to trap Mia. He stops and Isabelle asks if the plan worked. Suddenly a light catches their attention. The operators realize that they could not contain the girl. Mia fires several fireballs that serve to trap the operators. The moment after they are trapped, she launches a flaming sphere that would end the life of anyone there. Lloyd and Isabelle cannot hide the fear in their eyes. They wait for the worst to happen. At that moment Xenon jumps towards the fire sphere and cuts it in half with a sword blow. The sphere is split in two. Mia realizes that her attack has been blocked. Xenon says that she is stronger than ever. Certainly the other operators do not have enough power to defeat her. Mia asks if he will fight for real. Xenon removes the mask and says that he has no other choice but to use his real power. He didn't want to do that to a friend, but he won't override the administrator's orders. Meanwhile, inside the Tower of Judgment, the protagonist knocks down the monster with one blow and thinks he is calm for now. His current level is 250. Aiden asks Theodore to send more beasts. The guard suggests that he rest for a while, but the protagonist is excited to continue the fight and asks if Arya agrees with him. The girl doesn't answer. Aiden asks again and still no answers. Arya is trying to contact Mia and so far hasn't been able to, so she was worried and decided that she can't stand by waiting for the worst to happen. Arya says goodbye to the protagonist and tells him to ask for Theodore's help. The girl teleports, leaving the floor of the testing room destroyed. The protagonist is worried and thinks it must be some emergency, but he is trusting that Arya will come back fine. At that moment Siri contacts him saying that the village is full of new players. Aiden replies that this was exactly what they were waiting for, but the girl says that this time is different. She believes that one of the 5 great guilds is there. The scene changes to the battle between the operators. Isabelle notices that Xenon's level increased after he took off the mask. Now she understands why he never took it off when she asked. The fight continues between Xenon and Mia. He advances the sword towards his neck and the girl manages to dodge in time. The next attack is towards her arm. Mia manages to reduce the damage by using the flames, but her arm still receives some cuts, both of which operators are very good, and that's why it's hard for them to touch each other. Xenon hits the ground instead of Mia, causing an absurd dust. At that moment the operator uses the ability she didn't imagine she would use with one of her coworkers. Dyke realizes that Mia will use her own judgment. This only proves that the girl has reached her peak of anger. The operator first uses the lightning rain strategically. Xenon avoids it and she counterattacks from behind using the piercing fist, but only hits the ground. Isabelle realizes that things are getting worse and yells at Xenon to use his assigned weapons as well. The operator is not willing to do this. He uses his own sword to defend himself while Mia attacks from above. At that moment Xenon is a goodwill and does a sequence of sword handling. This time Mia can't dodge. The operators were all open-mouthed. Mia falls to the ground injured. Xenon approaches and raises his hand towards her. He says that he received authority from the administrator to withdraw his position. She will also lose her assigned weapon due to the way she acted. Xenon adds that from today on it is better for her to obey. The position of operator is taken away from Mia. Now the guy intends to send her straight to the administrator. When he is going to do this, an explosion happens near her body. Xenon looks without understanding anything. Arya recovers Mia and apologizes. She says she should have realized before. At that moment the operator feels that he has found the perfect opportunity to capture the two. The blow of his sword lifts all the stones in the place, but it doesn't come close to hitting Arya because she created a protective barrier. Xenon doesn't understand how she can do this because he is sure that the administrator blocked all her skills. Arya just replies that he wants to take Mia and asks the operator not to interfere. Xenon says that this will never happen. he orders Lloyd and Isabelle to take the weapons because things will get worse. Zenon introduces the opponent as the first operator called Arya. She had so much power that she could equal the administrator. Lloyd and Isabelle are surprised. Zenon adds that this overwhelming pressure coming from Arya, it's because she's really very powerful. Isabelle starts shaking. Arya takes a deep breath and says she just wanted to take Mia. Isabelle can't hold back the animation to test Arya's power and tries to hit her. The girl gets close enough to use her dagger, but when she goes to do that she feels something pierce her belly. Arya just moved her fist enough to cause crushing pain to the operator. Isabelle is thrown so far that she escapes the sight of everyone in the place. Arya realizes the mess she made and says that she is lucky that the goddess Procyon is not here. Suddenly she is surprised by the sneak attack of an operator. He can't even touch her. Arya raises her hand in his direction and sends a bolt of lightning. The guy gets hit and wonders since when she has a mid-level skill. Meanwhile, Zenon takes advantage of Arya's distraction to handle the weapon, just like he did with Mia. But this time his weapon is broken. Arya asks if he really had the courage to attack her without using an assigned weapon. She pulls out the dagger she used to defend herself and tells him not to underestimate her. Zenon replies that it's a shame that she comes back here and is still making jokes. He fixes the sword that was broken and says he can't hide the anger he feels when he looks at her. The guy attacks again and as always is stopped by Arya. He accuses her of not doing her job well and not protecting what she should. It was because of her that Aster changed. Zenon and Arya form an attack at the same time. The next moment the two collide in something. The administrator Aster holds the sword of the two. Arya is scared and he says that it's been a while since they last saw each other. A short time later the portal opens near the village, and Mia comes out of the inside. She looks very exhausted and tells herself that she can't stop now. She managed to escape with the necklace that Arya got from the protagonist. At that moment the girl says that she needs to contact he urgently and warn what happened to Arya. Meanwhile in the Urzj village, the players come across a guild invading the place. They soon recognize that it is the Hydra Guild and prefer not to get involved with these guys. The vice master of the guild comments that the place is too small for all his people. It will be even easier to conquer the place. He shouts for the members to enjoy. Suddenly one of his colleagues says that someone has arrived. The vice master demands that Theodore identify himself. The guard shoots thousands of arrows at the members of the Hydra Guild. The vice master gets angry and tries to attack Theodore, but the guard is protected by a protective barrier. He grabs the enemy by the neck. The vice master cannot escape and asks if he is fighting a rancor. Theodore turns his hand into a blade and says that he is protecting this village in the name of Master Aiden. And according to his master, the Hydra Guild is an enemy that deserves to be eliminated. The guard brings the blade hand closer to the vice master's face and the man begins to scream. At that moment the protagonist yells at Theodore to wait a while. Eliminating these men is a waste of time because they will be reborn again. So first he wants to ask what they came here to do. Theodore knocks the vice master to the ground and Aiden repeats the question. The vice believes that the protagonist arrived first and dominated the place. Thinking about it, the guy assumes that the best thing to do in this case is to convince Theodore to use his strength against Aiden. So the vice master makes up an excuse and tells the protagonist that this is not an invasion. In fact, he brought his men to form a base in the village and enjoy the content. The guy adds that it will be very good for the village if a large guild set up a base here. The market would expand and more people would be interested in the place. Aiden is thoughtful. The master considers himself a professional liar and thinks that the protagonist will fall for the excuse. But Aiden surprises him by saying that he refuses his presence in the village. The master asks if he is crazy. The protagonist replies that the guy is practically asking to profit from the village. Only an idiot could accept the offer. The master asks if Aiden thinks he is special just because he dominated a small village like this. He accuses the protagonist of wanting to have the authority of an administrator or operator. The man then demands that his team attack the boy. He is sure that not even a rancor will be able to deal with his team. Siri and Jake talk to each other that the protagonist has just recovered. They decide that they will protect him when the time comes, at which point Aiden activates command ability. The scene shifts to the past when the protagonist discovered that the village was being invaded by the Hydra Guild. Siri warned that Theodore had already gone to intercept the entrance. Jake makes himself available to protect the village. The protagonist says that they are not the only ones who hate the Hydra Guild, so they don't have to worry because he had an idea. The scene returns to the current moment and the protagonist uses the command to update the event. Suddenly all players in the village receive a message. The new event is to eliminate the members of the Hydra Guild who came to loot the village. The reward is the increase in 3x of experience for 10 hours for each defeated guild member. In addition, karma will not increase during the event. Aiden takes a deep breath after using all the energy in his body to create the last event. The Vice Master notices the turmoil that is brewing. The players gather ready to collect the reward. The battle begins and the members of the Hydra Guild begin to be defeated. Siri praised the protagonist for the clever idea. The Vice Master refuses to lose to ordinary players. He attacks with all his strength while encouraging the members to continue the duel. Aiden doesn't want the fight to go on for long. Theodore says he can finish them off in seconds. The protagonist replies that he knows he is capable, but he wants to test the new weapon he made. He removes a bow from the inventory. Meanwhile, the Vice Master continues to give the commands to his team. Suddenly, an arrow overtakes the armor and hits his shoulder. Limbs are worried and the man demands that they improve defense. The Vice Master prepared for the long-distance attack, but the arrow that the protagonist used was an execution arrow that ignored all defense. At that moment, Theodore tells Aiden that he should aim a little to the left. The Vice Master finds the person responsible for his wound and yells for the members to cut off his head, or else the protagonist will continue shooting arrows. The guild members run towards Aiden, but he says that his enemies can dream of his capture. Aiden knocked them down one by one with his flaming arrow. Even the commander was shot down. The group is lost without the Vice Master and someone shouts that they should retreat. After that, the members leave. The protagonist believes that now the villagers will be able to live in peace in the village. Maybe the news spreads and other guilds hesitate to go. At that moment, one of the players notices a man in black and asks if the Hydra Guild hasn't left yet. He decides to finish off the last limb to earn points, but that invader holds him by the hand and squeezes with all his strength. The player falls to the ground, drawing the attention of everyone around. The other players try to stop the hooded man. At the same moment, that intruder throws everyone with the force of his fist. The players look scared at the situation. Suddenly, the invader attacks the people who are in his way. Aiden and Theodore watch in silence. Fear settles among the villagers and they begin to flee. That intruder takes on a human form and his companion approaches. They say that they are now ready to find Aiden. At that moment, the protagonist receives an alert from the system, informing that a new dangerous element has been found and suggests carrying out an emergency inspection. Aiden warns Theodore that those two definitely have a connection with the virus. This means that they can destroy the village. The protagonist decides that he will defeat them in advance and confirms on the screen the emergency inspection. At that moment, everything turns red and the viruses wonder if the administrator is here. Siri tells the protagonist that he transported all the players and residents to a safe place. Aiden thanks him and says that he will take care of those useless ones now. The virus is taken by surprise and in the same second recognizes his opponent. He holds the protagonist's hand while saying that he is the same as the description. The virus says that it is much easier when the target appears in front of him. The masked virus tries to attack Aiden, who is distracted, but is struck by lightning and flies several meters away. Theodore says that those who want to harm the master will be targeted for elimination. The guard tells the protagonist to focus on the virus because he will take care of this guy. The virus takes advantage of Aiden's distraction to use his power. He holds the protagonist by the hands and says that he caught him, but Aiden replies that he was the one who caught the virus. Suddenly the enemy starts to be electrocuted. He tries to free himself from the protagonist's hands and fails. Aiden increases his own strength by 10x, then tells the enemy that he should thank that before being eliminated he had the chance to meet the current administrator. The protagonist hits his fist 10 times harder on the virus's belly and he flies away. Jake and Siri eagerly await the master's return. Aiden feels better now that he has increased his level and has been able to edit the force. He looks around looking for Theodore. The guard drops the masked virus's body on the ground, and the protagonist realizes that he didn't have to worry. He praises Theodore for hitting that guy who tried to attack him at high speed. Theodore says that he wasn't as fast as he seemed. Now he asks what they're going to do with the bodies. The protagonist thinks that the best thing would be to delete it, but prefers not to do it because he wants to be different from the current administrator. At that moment, Aiden enters their subconscious and realizes that these players have gained an abnormal power to camouflage themselves, so he decides to cut the men's connections as players. The protagonist takes the sword and hits the chains that hold the viruses. After that, he leaves space. Jake thinks it's amazing that Aiden has managed to turn these powerful guys into regular players. The protagonist says that he is sure that these men have some connection with the viruses and have been keeping an eye on him for a while, so it's better to hold them until they wake up. Then they will do an investigation to find out who sent them. Suddenly a voice says that it won't be necessary to do an investigation to know him. The Regan virus comes out of the ground and begins to envelop the protagonist while saying he will take him with him. Jake and Siri try to stop him, but Aiden disappears inside the dark fog. He is taken to another space called the Purification Zone. This space is the same as the inspection that the protagonist uses, only in favor of the viruses. This means that his commands here will not work properly. The Regan virus complains that those hackers he created were very weak and could not even complete the first mission they received. He did not intend to capture the protagonist with his bare hands, but he had no choice. Regan adds that if he had Aiden's power and authority, he could come close to overcoming Trojan. He raises his hand to the protagonist to break his defense created by the system itself, but when he tries to do so he is hit in the belly by an arrow. The virus is split in half and falls to the ground. He immediately knows who is responsible for the attack and asks why she is always on the Emperor's side. Procyon looks at him emotionlessly. The scene changes to something that happened a few seconds ago in the village. Siri tried to follow the mist left by the virus, but Theodore stopped her from approaching, saying that it is too dangerous. Procyon asks them to get out of the way and then destroys that dark mist. A huge portal opens and Siri asks how this woman got here if the place was under inspection. Procyon has a strange feeling when he looks at Siri. She decides not to say anything and enters the portal. Jake asks if the girl knows this woman. Siri replies that he has never seen her, but the power he feels from her is equal to the power of Sirius. The magician Siri was rescued and raised by the dragon when he was still a child. She learned from him that there were only 3 dragons in the world. Sirius intended to introduce the other 2 to her, but did not have time, at which point Siri looks at Procyon and says that it is not possible that she is one of them. The scene goes back to the present moment. The protagonist manages to get rid of the virus with the help of Procyon. He looks at the woman and wonders who she is. Meanwhile, the goddess scolds Regan for continuing to cause trouble openly. This means that he is not afraid of being deleted. Procyon takes the sword again and says that he will fulfill his wish then. Regan says he can try to delete it if he can. The virus starts to run away. Procyon throws the sword and the guy almost gets hit. He knows he can't escape for long because he received critical damage right at the beginning, so his only alternative is to use the stealth skill to not be found. He intends to infect her while he is hiding. His sneak attack doesn't work because Procyon has a high perception and blocks the virus in time. Regan gets scared, asking how she found out where he was. Procyon calls him ridiculous and asks if he really thought he could fool her. The goddess is using the dragon's ability that can identify the essence of the target, then it is practically impossible to use a sneak attack against her. The goddess throws several arrows and the virus is caught on the way. She shortens the distance and is about to fatally destroy it. Regan is hit and falls to the ground as his body begins to disappear. Procyon presses his foot on his chest and asks if he wants to say the last words. The virus laughs and says that she can end it soon. After all, her end is not so far away either. Procyon totally ignores the threat and defeats the virus. The protagonist is in the corner watching everything. He has a sense of familiarity when he looks at Procyon. It's the same feeling as had when she saw Sirius. The goddess looks at him and in seconds puts the sword on his neck. Aiden is scared. She says that he needs to accompany her because the administrator wants to talk to him. Meanwhile, in the bad sector, the core of the Regan virus falls to the ground. Worm says he knew this would happen. The guy simply ignored his requests to be quiet. He thinks the best thing to do is to see Regan being deleted slowly. Suddenly a voice tells viruses to leave things as they are. Worm looks with surprise at the newcomer. The blue-haired man is Beetlejuice. He asks Worm mockingly if his clone ability will not be enough to help Regan. Worm replies that he was joking when he said he was going to let the virus be deleted. He puts his hand on top of Regan's core while saying that it would be a waste to throw it away. At that moment the virus is rescued and recovers the body. Regan gets up trying to catch his breath. Worm says that now he owes him one. The virus curses that he lost that fight because the last thing he wanted was to create a debt with Worm. Beetlejuice enters the conversation and says that they should not forget the plan. It will be problematic if the power of someone in the group decreases, then suggests that Regan stay here until he fully recovers. Beetlejuice mentally says that the administrator can wait for him because in a little while he will give him back his freedom. At that moment in the village, the inspection is removed but the protagonist does not return. Jake and Siri realize that something is wrong. Theodore is also worried. Suddenly an explosion happens and they see two silhouettes. Aiden appears being coerced by the goddess's weapon. Procyon looks curiously at the player, who has the highest rank than the administrator. She also knows that the protagonist has already been deleted, so she considers him a virus for staying alive. The goddess uses her dragon eyes to be sure, but realizes that her perception was wrong. The protagonist exudes the same aura as Administrator Astor. Procyon wonders if this is a coincidence or a bug. Aiden notices the way the goddess looks at him, and comes to the conclusion that her eyes are the same to those of Sirius. There is no longer any doubt for the boy that Procyon is also a dragon. This awakens an inner anger in the protagonist, because he realizes that she is using the dragon's ability to get information from him. At that moment the goddess begins to be pushed back and the system informs her that access has been denied. Procyon is surprised realizing that Aiden has rejected his power. This has never happened before, and the goddess notes that it will be problematic if she doesn't take him to the administrator soon. Theodore realizes that she will use the sword and gets in front of the protagonist. He asks Aiden to run away because he is not sure if he will be able to hold it for long. Procyon is surprised that the protagonist has already used his administrator powers to recruit a servant. She thinks that Theodore has the same strength as the high-level soldiers who protect Astor, so she knows how to defeat him. The protagonist says that apparently the goddess already knows him and knows what he feels for the administrator. Aiden never got over the scene of seeing his sister being erased. Now he wants to know why Astor is looking for him. Procyon is bothered by his tone of voice and says that he owes respect to the administrator. Aiden takes the gun and asks if she thinks he will have any respect for the damn one who deleted his sister. In this case the administrator will have to come in person if he wants to talk. Theodore prepares the spears and waits for the protagonist's command to shoot. Procyon says that he will take Aiden even if he is forced. A confrontation is about to begin. At that moment Mia finally finds the village. She enters between the two and screams to stop it. Procyon and Aiden obey. The goddess notices the cuts and asks what happened. Mia kindly asks Procyon for a break. The scene changes to the administrator's meeting room. Arya is sitting in the chair and the operators stand around her. The administrator sits a little further away, protected by two guards. Astor apologizes for tying her to the table. He didn't want to, but he had no choice. The administrator says that Arya made a mistake by breaking the taboo. Taboo is a power that can turn this whole world into nothing and no one should use it. Astor is sincere and says that he doesn't want to lose Arya, then asks her to give up the operations of the system and return to the original function. Arya says that he must be confusing things. She is no longer an operator in this place. The girl easily breaks the handcuffs while saying that she is now an operator for Aiden. All the weapons on the table are pointed at Arya. Lloyd did not expect that the girl would break the administrator's restrictions so easily. This only proves that no operator there could handle her. The administrator asks the guards to put down their weapons and asks where Arya knows Aiden from. He also questions what she would do if she was betrayed by Aiden. Astor is pretty sure that the protagonist is a virus because he came back after being deleted, but that doesn't matter now because he sent Procyon to take care of him. Arya starts laughing and says that it's good to bring Aiden here. After all, they couldn't hide any longer. She says that she has been waiting for the moment for a long time when she will finally remove her brother from the position of administrator. The scene changes to the village. Mia tells everything that happened to Procyon. The protagonist could only hear that Arya was taken by the administrator. Procyon asks what Ms. meant when she asked for a timeout. Mia replies that it is exactly what she is thinking. The goddess replies that she cannot help but take the protagonist because it is a request from the administrator. Mia yells that Aiden is the only one who can fix a bug. Procyon widens his eyes in surprise and asks if she is telling the truth. The operator replies yes and adds that Arya said that the protagonist was very important. Procyon knows that his eyes would not lie, and from the beginning they were able to show how special Aiden was, but she is not sure if fixing bugs is possible because it was something that Astor wanted to achieve from the beginning and had no advancement. Suddenly an idea pops into the goddess's head. She thinks that if the protagonist really manages to restore a bug, maybe he can return Astor to his original state. At that moment Mia returns the necklace that Aiden created. She says that it was Arya who gave her so that she could contact the protagonist. Arya opened a portal when the fight started and pushed her inside, leaving only the necklace in her hands. The protagonist is worried even though he knows that if Arya was there she would say that she could solve this alone. He starts to walk away with Mia. Procyon tells the protagonist that they need to finish the fight because either way it will take him. Many people already know about his existence and will come looking for him, so it is safer for him to go with her. The protagonist takes a deep breath and says that he is going with her, but makes it clear that he will not be polite in front of the administrator. It's already hard to contain her anger just remembering him. Procyon replies that he understands. She creates a portal and says it's time to go. Theodore arrives in a hurry and asks the protagonist to take him. He thinks it will be very dangerous if his master goes alone. Aiden replies no, he needs Theodore to stay and take care of the village if he doesn't come back. The protagonist makes it clear that he trusts the guard and asks him to protect all the residents. Theodore obeys and says that he will stay here until his return. Aiden smiles and enters the portal. Meanwhile, in the bad sector, the viruses started to accumulate. The worm called them to an emergency meeting. Regan asks what they are going to do without Trojan here. He is sure they will not even go through Procyon. Worm says that he is right. That's why he has something to use in his favor. The viruses are surprised to see the Trojan sword. Worm says that now the preparations are complete. Astor will be destroyed at last. The scene changes to the administrator's building. Aiden looks around and Procyon warns that they have arrived. The administrator appears at the top and thanks the goddess for his work, then tells them to enter the room. The protagonist is in the same space as the other operators. Lloyd regrets not having finished with Aiden early on. He thinks that because of him the admin will have to face the protagonist. Aiden breaks the awkward silence and asks why Astor called him here. The admin asks if he knows Trojan. The protagonist replies no and asks who this guy is. The admin replies that Trojan is a woman. It's the only existence that comes from another world and challenges the power of the admin. Trojan manipulates the viruses to do what she wants. Astor adds that he brought the protagonist here to protect him because he is sure that Trojan is after him. Since now the protagonist has the authority of the administrator asks if Aiden ever found it strange that he remained alive even after being deleted. Astor is sure that it was Trojan who intervened. At that moment the protagonist remembers all the times he received help from an unknown light and the missions that only appeared to him. Astor says that inspection done to find the protagonist was also strange. That day the traces of the Trojan were found. Probably his purpose in the inspection was to protect the bugs. Astor adds that Trojan is not a common virus. She changes appearance and blends in among the players. It is practically impossible to find her. Even the administrator and the operators cannot tell the difference. The protagonist asks the administrator if there was no other way to avoid deleting his sister and the other villagers. Astor replies that there was no other way. Aiden loses control and begins to curse Astor. He screams that his sister was an innocent child, and yet she was deleted. The protagonist can't believe that the highest-ranked administrator couldn't find another way. He calls Astor incompetent. Dyke and Lloyd intercept Aiden's path and tells him not to get any closer than that. The protagonist gets even angrier and asks what the hell are they talking about. They were the ones who brought him here and now they want to stop him from talking. Aiden yells at the operators to get out of the way and sends a sinister pressure to them. The boy says that he is no longer an NPC and will not receive commands from anyone. The operators feel the weight of the protagonist's pressure and compare it to that of the administrator. Suddenly a voice says that if someone touches Aiden, he will gain an enemy. The protagonist turns towards the voice recognizing that it is Arya. The girl looks at him with a smile on her face. The operators are surprised to see Arya without handcuffs. She says that to arrest her will need a greater effort. The girl jumps towards Aiden and he asks if she is okay. Arya answers yes and says that she will apologize on behalf of her older brother. The protagonist asks what she means by older brother. Arya apologizes for not saying that before. Aiden feels his body tremble when he realizes that Arya is the administrator's sister. He wonders how he didn't notice the resemblance before. Astor enters the conversation and says that some questions, according to the report he received from Mia. The protagonist gathered some residents in a village and created new content for the players, so he wants to know what Aiden's goal is, now that he has the authority of administrator. The protagonist replies that he wants to destroy the current system. The operators are taken by surprise and wonder what this crazy guy is saying to the administrator. Aiden says that he has heard some complaints from the players. This world has not been updated for a long time. Every problem that arises, the only solution is to delete. The viruses are going around causing mess and infecting innocent people. The protagonist adds that he is the best choice to be the administrator because he is the only one who can cure the bugs. The operators talk to each other that this is impossible because not even the administrator can fix it. Arya interrupts the conversation and says that she saw it with her own eyes, but if they can't believe it, just ask Procyon. The administrator decides that it is better to have a private conversation. The next moment a barrier forms. Aster says that this time no one will interfere in the conversation. The protagonist asks what he wants to say that no one can hear. The administrator replies that Aiden is right. He knew all the mistakes that had been happening, even so deleting was the only way he had to solve the problem. He thinks he could have found another solution, but he lost his emotions a while ago, and only now is he succeeding get them back again after losing Sirius. Aster confesses that he trapped the dragon in that hidden village because he didn't understand that Sirius was trying to guide him to the right path. Arya followed his actions and came to the conclusion that he was no longer fit to be the administrator. The guy regrets everything he did and thinks he can't continue in charge. At that moment Aster decides to give up the position of administrator. The barrier breaks and the two appear among the operators. The protagonist threatens the administrator with the sword at his neck. Aiden got even angrier when Aster thought he could solve everything just by ceasing to be an administrator. He says that his sister will not come back just because he left the position. Aster replies that he understands his feelings and is willing to be deleted. Arya looks scared and Procyon begs the protagonist not to do it. Aiden says that he has been waiting for this moment for a long time. He wants the administrator to suffer as much as he does. The operators advance towards the protagonist, but he presses the delete button and all weapons disappear. Xenon is horrified, realizing that Aiden can use the same command as the administrator. At that moment the protagonist tells everyone to stay away because he will not hesitate to finish them off one by one. Procyon continues to ask the protagonist to destroy her instead of Aster. She says that the administrator had no choice but to do that. At the end of it all he was also harmed, so he asks the protagonist to choose her instead of Aster. Aiden replies that nothing changes the fact that the administrator made wrong choices. His younger sister was deleted and he can't get over it. The protagonist adds that he can give up if they bring his sister back. He knows that this is impossible, so he decides to destroy Aster as soon as possible. At that moment Aiden notices Arya looking at his brother. He looks deep into her eyes and remembers Alice. The protagonist knows that deep down Arya is not to blame for her brother's mistakes. At that moment his hand trembles, and he leaves the administrator on the ground. Aiden gives up destroying him, and Arya tries to talk to him, but the protagonist simply ignores it and walks towards the exit. Arya feels her heart hurt. The operators run to the administrator. Xenon remembers that Aster was ready to accept fate and wonders if his emotions have returned. The administrator tells the operators that the protagonist was not wrong. He really took advantage of it to use temporary solutions that were not going to work in the long run. Aster feels that he has failed and now someone better seems to have been born. He felt that he could trust the protagonist because Arya did. The operators start to say that Aster is the best for the position. For them the best decision was the exclusion because there was a risk of the virus spreading faster and faster. Xenon remembers that Aster didn't want to delete anyone and felt bad when he had to do it. But so far there is still no way to stop the virus, so he doesn't think Aster failed. Procyon agrees and says that they can fix things from now on, just have courage and ask Aiden for help. The protagonist hears this and turns around asking if he heard it right. He questions why is the administrator asking to be healed if it is not a bug in the first place. Aster replies that his condition is not normal and the protagonist must have already noticed. He has no option but to ask for help from the only one with this healing ability. Aster believes that the protagonist can be a great administrator and makes himself available to help him rebuild the system, then asks if they can work together. Aiden thinks for a moment and agrees. He decides to heal Aster first and asks him not to create an expectation. Arya asks her brother to trust. She is sure that the protagonist it will help if you can. Aster replies that it's okay and says that he will follow the administrator that his sister chose because in the end his decisions were always right. At that moment Aiden invades the administrator's subconscious. He feels a strong light blind his eyes and protects himself with his hand. Aiden gets close to Aster's body and finds the place of the injury. He thinks about whether he should share his power to heal the administrator from within. The protagonist decides to try and suddenly a golden light appears in his hand. He looks carefully at the bracelet he got from Alice and asks what it is. The golden light becomes intense and a silhouette appears. The voice says that everything will be fine. Suddenly the light explodes and Aiden shields his eyes. When he opens it he finds Alice behind the administrator's body. The scene changes to Selena. The operator was still in the operator's room. She remembers when she was a child and got lost in the middle of an inspection. The administrator deleted everyone and Selena feared she would be next. At that moment a virus arrived to talk to her. He asks her how she feels watching this horrible scene. Selena doesn't think twice and sticks the sword in the virus's chest. But nothing happens because he can't be hurt by a simple sword. The virus tells Selena that it is gathering people who want to end the administrator. He is sure that she will be someone useful in the future, so he asks what she thinks about going with him. The scene returns to the present moment and Selena enters the security room. She removes the sword from its scabbard and prepares to break the protection of the building. The sword was delivered by Worm a while ago. Selena seems to hesitate a little, but ends up breaking the security of the place. At that moment the viruses teleport into the building. Meanwhile in the administrator's room, the operators wait for Aster to be cured. Procyon says that no one should interfere until the two open their eyes. At that moment several red screens of the system appear informing that a critical error has occurred. The operators look around trying to understand what went wrong. Suddenly the system warns that viruses have invaded the building. At that moment the environment changes from blue to purple. All the functionalities of the system have weakened. And now there is a restriction of commands for the operators. Xenon questions how the viruses could invade this place. Dyke remembers that Selena takes care of security and asks where she is. Suddenly a voice says that he is happy to find them all together. Worm observes the administrator and says that it's good to see him again. He's accompanied by Beetlejuice, Regan, Virus F and Virus E. Worm says that there are more people to come. He snaps his fingers and the thousands of viruses appear. The operators prepare the weapons. Xenon says that this is perfect. Now he can delete them all at once. At that moment Procyon recognizes Beetlejuice. She decides she needs to do something, so she asks Arya to stay here to protect the protagonist and the administrator. Arya agrees and Procyon advances to the enemies. Arya promises that she won't let anyone interfere in what is happening, but she can't get rid of the worry. She just hopes that everything is fine in the subconscious. Meanwhile, the protagonist is thrilled to see his sister again. He tries to get closer and is stopped by Aster, who shouts that this demon is not Alice. The administrator does not believe that he could not see this damn thing before. He tells the protagonist that this is actually a Trojan. From the beginning Alice never existed. It was all part of Trojan's plan.